We'll go ahead and get started. Need to adjust that clock. It's wrong by about a minute or two minutes. We'll go ahead and start the public hearing. It is. Got to be correct about things. We're going to start the public hearing section of the March meeting. First off, we'll have the proclamation by Commissioner Fritz honoring the Shelter Animals Rescue Group. Commissioner Fritz.
Representative for Sarge will come forward. Group as such. I feel sort of honored being one to be able to do this because I've got some tough shoes to fill. Normally this would be a dear friend of mine and former fellow commissioner, Robin Belaski, who would be doing this. When she gave me a call from Florida, asking if I would be willing to present this resolution, she didn't have to ask me twice because of the great service that this group does. And once you hear this resolution, you'll understand why. This is resolution number 1803-684, resolution honoring Sheltered Animals Rescue Group, SARG. Whereas SARG is a non-profit organization with a steadfast mission to give Anderson County's homeless animals a second chance at life by placing these animals into loving, caring, and responsible homes. And whereas the efforts of SARG has dramatically reduced the county's population of stray, unwanted animals by placing over 1,000 animals in new homes and sponsoring monthly spay, neuter, and vaccination clinics free of charge to low-income families in Anderson County animal shelters. And whereas in the past 6 years, SARG has donated over $30,000 to area residents for emergency medical procedures, $20,000 and $20,800 for purchase of a shelter transport van to take animals to shelters in the northern United States and other pet adoption centers, $5,000 to the Anderson County for building of a much-needed animal shelter, $11,000 to the Oak Ridge Animal Shelter for greatly needed improvements, along with several thousand pounds of pet food to low-income senior citizens. And whereas in 2017 alone, SARG paid for over 150 animals to be spayed or neutered. Whereas without the assistance of SARG, the vision of a viable Anderson County animal shelter would never come into fruition. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Anderson County Board of Commissioners meeting in regular session the 19th day of March 2018, that we officially commend and honor the heroic efforts of SARG and its dedicated group of volunteers in reducing the homeless animal population in our county, and in doing so, recognize their efforts that have made Anderson County a better place to live and work for all of our citizens. Be it further resolved that we declare the entire month of April 2018 to be Animal Awareness Month in Anderson County. We further encourage all Anderson County citizens to donate their time or monetary contributions to SARG and the animal shelters for the benefit and well-being for all homeless animals in our county. Resolved, duly passed, and approved this 19th day of February 2018. Thank you all for such a great service to this county.
We want to thank the commission so much for this honor, and it is an honor. We try to work for the animals of Anderson County. We can hope to continue doing that, and we certainly recognize the kind of support that you people have given to changing the climate in Anderson County for animals. So thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. This time it's an honor for me to call on Commissioner Denenberg to honor who I consider a great man and has been an excellent county commissioner. A resolution honoring Commissioner Whitey Hitchcock.
It's my honor and privilege to read this resolution. I didn't know what you were getting me into, Whitey. Resolution honoring Commissioner Dr. Whitey H. Hitchcock. Whereas for over 3 decades, Commissioner Whitey Hitchcock has served this county with dignity, distinction, and everlasting pride. His remarkable service has included many honors and accolades, from a passionate teacher of young adults, community leader, volunteer to many worthy community organizations, conservationist, to his prolific career as a member of the Anderson County Board of Commissioners since 2006. And whereas during this tenure as a county commissioner, he served on numerous important county government committees, spending time as the chairman of the Operations Committee, Conservation, and Veterans Service Boards. And whereas, excuse me, of his many worthy endeavors, perhaps his biggest accomplishment was his passion for influencing and impacting the lives of young adults in our society, from the educational classroom to their chosen career paths. Dr. Whitey Hitchcock stood with these young men and women throughout many of their lives' changes far after graduation from formal education. His passion for students will never be surpassed. And whereas no doubt Dr. Hitchcock changed the county's perspective on the treatment of inmates in the detention center. His invaluable studies and research identified a concerning trend of an abnormally high recidivism rate for young adults housed in the county's detention facility. As usual, Whitey set out on a personal mission to find the cause and fix the problem that had many adverse impacts on the lives of these men and women and the physical effects of on the county's taxpayers. Of his many evidence-based solutions, the creation of the county's alternative to incarceration program was born. This program alone has firmly demonstrated that the warehousing of prisoners is not an efficient, economical, or human solution, and that all people need a second chance at life to correct the wrongs of improper influences and pay back their debt to society. Today, this program stands atop as a model program across the state and this nation for jurisdictions to replicate and implement. And whereas Whitey is a man of immense integrity and constantly dedicated to improving lives of anyone he touched, his focus has never been about him. He believed as he always worked as a team, we can make this world a better place for all. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Anderson County Board of Commissioners meeting in regular session this 19th day of March, 2018, that we commend our dear friend and colleague on his accomplishments, both during his professional career and his remarkable tenure as a member of this body. His everlasting mark has been profoundly etched in the lives of many Anderson County citizens, and his legacy will never be forgotten in Anderson County. Resolved, duly passed, and approved this 19th day of March, 2018, although this does say February. Whitey, congratulations.
Thank you all. I'll miss you. I already have. Thank you. That's quite a surprise.
Thank you for all the things you've done.
Thank you. Good luck, man. No, that was quite a surprise. I appreciated recognizing the education on that. You deserve every bit.
Take care.
Spend the money wisely. Thank all of you, but I'd also like to recognize Steve and Catherine in a special way, because Steve and I are quite different in a lot of our politics, from national and down to local. But I think that we've been able to show the county and show fellow commissioners that having people on both sides of the aisle representing the same group of people can be quite beneficial. And I hope that we've shown that. And that's one reason I like the idea of Catherine and Steve continuing that tradition. And I urge everybody to watch them in the way that they can get things done, regardless of what's going on in the political world around us. When there's lots of tension, you can do it. And I appreciate you, Steve, and I appreciate Catherine. Thank you. What you do for the county and what you have done for the county, too.
Thank you.
They've both been chair of the opposite political parties, and they work good. They'll work good together, and it will enhance, not get in their way. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Now, Whitey pointed out that we didn't all see eye to eye on everything, but there was one thing we always agreed on, that the most important factor in who makes a good county official is a person that leads their life with honor and always wants the best thing to happen for the citizens of Anderson County. And we had that in common the whole time. And I think that's the secret to this very successful commission. I think we have, I won't count myself, but the other 15 at least are people of honor, and they want to get the right thing done. And that's why I think we've worked together so well. We're all going to miss you, Whitey.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Next, we'll have presentations from the UT Anderson County Extension Service. Ms. Laura. Thank you for the sweets, by the way.
You're welcome. Did you see what was in there? Just a little surprise. Thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to speak with you about UT Extension and what we're doing in the community. I'm Laura Emhoff, and I've met some of you. I'm the County Director and the Family and Consumer Sciences Extension Agent. And I just wanted to introduce the rest of our team. We have Lindsay McGeehan. She is our Program Assistant. Tyler Bruin, our Agriculture Agent. Donna Carter, 4-H Agent. Sarah Harrison Brown couldn't be here today, but she's our 4-H Program Assistant. And Iva Marlowe, our Administrative Assistant. I'm sure a lot of you already know Iva. She's fabulous. We love her. As I mentioned, I'm the Family and Consumer Sciences agent, so that means I provide evidence-based education on family issues, health, nutrition, finances, or home issues in the community. And I just wanted to make you all aware of a really exciting opportunity for Anderson County. We were one of 9 counties across the state of Tennessee that were chosen to pilot a new program for senior exercise, and that's called Stay Strong, Stay Healthy. It is a weight training and resistance training opportunity. All of the dumbbells and the ankle weights were all provided by a grant opportunity, so at no cost to the county. And we're going to be getting ready to get that up and moving in the senior centers in the community in we're looking about May or June. It's going to be working on flexibility, stability, and strength training for our seniors over the age of 65, which is really important because that's when people are at greater risk of falls. About 1 in 4 people over the age of 65 fall each year. And we're each going to talk briefly about our program. Lindsay McGeehan's up next to talk about our nutrition education program.
Hi, I'm Lindsay, the nutrition educator for UT Extension. I teach general nutrition and consumer education for youth, adults, and families here in Anderson County who qualify or receive WIC and or SNAP benefits. I teach families how to make quick, healthy meals at home, teaching them how to shop and plan on a budget, as well as promoting positive behavioral changes such as getting more water and more physical activity in their daily routines. I also work with kids in the schools, teaching them about also healthier eating habits and physical activity as well. And I'll introduce Tyler up next. He's our Ag Extension agent.
Good evening. My name is Tyler Bruin. I am the Agriculture Extension Agent. My job basically is to provide research-based education to homeowners, landowners, and farmers here in Anderson County. This can include anyone from a small-time gardener to a large-time farmer, beef operation. I offer programs for livestock producers such as Master Beef, Master Equine, Small Ruminant, Beekeeper. Anderson County is ranked 9th in the state in the number of beehives. And I also do some programs for homeowners and landowners who maybe don't do much with livestock but have an interest in horticulture. We offer the Master Gardener program for those people, and I am getting that program started up here later this week, in fact. I also provide information as well as getting in touch with program specialists with the University of Tennessee who will be able to help these people out in specific areas of agriculture. And I also do farm and homeowner visit. So if anybody has a question about their yard, trees, plants, anything like that, I am able to go out and to basically see what the problem is, identify, and help them to overcome whatever is wrong with their yard or anything around their home. And last but not least, we have Ms. Donna Carter, who is in charge of 4-H.
It's a real pleasure to be with you. My name is Donna Carter. I'm the County 4-H Extension Agent, and myself and Sarah Harrison Brown have the privilege of working with over 1,800 4-Hers here in Anderson County. Boys and girls start 4-H when they're in 4th grade and continue all the way through high school. And in fact, right at this moment, we have a delegation down at Tennessee 4-H Congress, the 71st annual event. And they're having a marvelous time, and we have 2 of our candidates who are running for state office positions. So it's been since the 70s since we've had a Anderson County youth that was one of the state officers, and we wish them the best. We offer 26 different projects that children can explore in 4-H. Everyone knows about agriculture, but they may not know about science and technology programs and family consumer science programs and environmental programs. So we have 26 projects, something for every child. This year, we were very proud to be the recipient of a Google grant that provided us with $17,000 worth of equipment to support science and technology program in 4-H this year. Also, one of our largest educational programs is the 4-H speech contest, and this year we had 812 children in Anderson County who competed in the speech competition, and they did a marvelous job. And we have with us tonight one of our 4th graders, the county winner, Mr. Gideon Chandler.
Come on, Gideon.
Behold, chickens are the best. B-E-S-T. I think they're the best because they are the best animal and they have extraordinary eggs. And showing them is so satisfying, and their tender, tasty meat is terrific. These are the reasons that I think chickens are the best. B is for best animal. I think they're the best because they are so small you can have them in the city or the farm. They have really cool combs on their heads. My favorite 3 kinds of combs are buttercup, single, and rose comb. They have fascinating feathers that come in awesome colors. My favorite 3 breeds of chickens are Ashlorp, Langshans, and Isay Browns. That's why I think chickens are the best animal. E is for eggs of extraordinary color. Blue, brown, white, and green are a few colors of eggs that I get. You could sell the eggs for money. You could raise and hatch them, and 4-H lets you raise your own laying hen. So you can go out to the barn and find your own extraordinary egg. S is for satisfying shows. In the summer, it's so fun. The fair has chicken shows. 4-H has their own class. You put them in a cage, you feed and water them, and the judge will be looking for nice clean feathers and chooses a winner to win a ribbon and sometimes even money. When you win the show, it is so satisfying. T is for tender, tasty meat. Broiler chickens, such as Cornish, grow very, very fast and are ready to harvest in 8 to 10 weeks. You could make chicken soup, chicken dumplings, and chicken scallopini, my favorite. All these things you can make with chicken meat. Chickens really are the best. They're the best animal. I love their extraordinary eggs. Showing them is so satisfying, and their tender, tasty meat is terrific. That's why I think chickens are the best. B-E-S-T.
I think it's fair to say that being the 4-H agent is the coolest job ever.
I want to say thank you to the Extension Service. I serve as the chairman of the Extension Committee, and I'm just very pleased and proud that we have a outstanding staff, a full staff, and just great to see all the smiling faces here. And thank you all for bringing the kids to us. I mean, it just, and all the times that we see and across the nation that kids are getting in trouble, it's good to see that we have young people like this in Anderson County. So thank you all very much for what y'all do. Yes. It is. Working with kids is. At this time, We'll do the public hearing on the amendment to the Anderson County zoning resolution by revisiting Section 1, Division 45, special provisions of Article 3 by the addition of a new section 045-180 of the self-storage facilities. This was published in the then to the Clinton Courier News on February the 28th. There were some small changes in that. Is there any comments or questions on that? We read this at the last county commission meeting. Hearing none. Is there any other business to come before the public hearing section? If not, we stand adjourned till 6:30.
call this meeting of the Anderson County Board of Commissioners together this day of March 19th, 2018. Go to the board and register your attendance, please. All in attendance. Next, we have the prayer by Commissioner Val and the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Wandale.
You pray with me, please. Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for every blessing that you send to us for our salvation, for your guidance, for the Holy Spirit, Lord, to lead the way. We ask your forgiveness on our sins. We pray you strengthen us, God, to do what's best for your people, the people of your county. Please be with each heart, each mind, Father, as we try to do that tonight. All this we ask in Jesus' holy name. Amen.
Amen.
In honor of our men and women that serve our great country, our great county, and great state, let's do a pledge to the United States of America. Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we have appearance of citizens. During this time, you'll please come to the podium and speak. And when you do, please address the chairman. And you'll do that, and you'll address each other. When we do this, we'll do this with respect to one another, and there'll be no personal attacks. So who would like to come first?
I suppose I would like to, Mr. Chairman.
And state your name and your address, please.
My name is Nathaniel Varner, and I live at 104 Haven Hill Lane in Oak Ridge.
Okay. You have 3 minutes, Mr. Varner.
Yeah, thank you. Now, I've been hanging around all the budget meetings recently. I've been to the EMS audit, I've been to, of course, the budget meetings, I've been to county commission, and I worry about the county budget, and of course, I'm sure everyone does. But it's gonna be a tough year. That's just how it is. There's not enough money to do everything we wish we could do. But one thing I would really like to see is, do we have a 5-year budget plan for trying to get our capital back up to the standards we want it to be at, so we can replace all the sheriff's vehicles, all the ambulances, the fire trucks, all of that. I like to see more than just thinking about next year. Because in my experience, if you keep thinking of what's tomorrow, what's next month, and what's just next year, then you're just going to keep doing the same thing over and over again. And my other concern about the budget concerns the employees of the county. And they work extremely hard. And frankly, they deserve a lot more compensation than they get. I think a lot of us would agree on that. And I'd like that to be taken into consideration when you're thinking of this long-term budget plan. Because employees who are paid well and have good vacation time tend to be good employees who stay with the county, who keep getting better and want to work for the county and give the citizens of the county the best service possible. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Varner.
Good points. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Mr. Morgan?
Thank you. My name is Mark Morgan, the Park Superintendent, Norris Dam State Park, Rocky Top. I just wanted to come and speak with you just for briefly about where the park is right now and where we intend to go for 2018. We've had a good winter, and we're looking forward to a great summer. Our revenues are up over 3% over same time last year, with our expenditures down below the forecasted place we should be at this point, according to our budget officers. This increase in revenue is primarily from increased tourism, which everybody that comes to see us is spending money elsewhere in the county. We've had some major investments in the park this year. Our CCC historic cabins in the east side of the park have received over $1 million worth of renovations, and we're still ongoing, ironing out a few misdeeds with that, but we're continuing the upgrade of those so that they can be open year-round. We have renewed interest in Camp Kinchin or Camp Sam, which is down below those cabins. We've installed a trail that goes straight from the cabins down to that CCC camp. We've done a lot of work down there to clean it up. People coming that are interested in the history of the CCCs. We are the only place in the state of Tennessee that we know of that still has stoneworks from the CCC era, besides the national parks. But as far as a state park, we're the only one that has historic structures. And we plan on expanding on that some. Hill Cave, for many of you, if you've been around, was a popular cave opening down along the banks of the lake. We had to close it for many years due to the white nose syndrome, protect our bats. We're able to open that back up, and we're planning on starting tours through the cave again. I put just a little blurb out on that, and I had 60 people interested in less than an hour. So we're looking forward to getting that. Our Office of Sustainability in Nashville is the people that are concerned with energy efficiency. They've given us a lot of money for some HVAC repairs, repair of some windows, some roofs, insulation, new windows. The pool will be open for 2018. Standard cabins out on the east side, on the west side of the park, have received some new furnishings, so they upgrade them. The ladies in the office have done a remarkable job of new prints and furniture to make them more comfortable. 2018, 4th of July, we always say that the 3-day weekend before it is our big weekend. We plan on over 40 enjoyable programs for those 3 days. 40, and we're still counting. We got a lot going on. And finally, my RTP grant, where I'm getting a mini trail dozer to build more trails. Hopefully get that bid finalized at the end of this month, and we get that machine ordered to build some more trails.
Great.
We got that planned. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Mr. Chairman, if there's not anyone else to speak, indulge me just for a minute. Today, March the 19th. Oh, today is my mom's 98th birthday, and I just want to wish her happy birthday. You'll be happy about that. Thank you.
Good sound, good sound.
Any other citizens to appear? Next, we'll go to the approval and correction of the agendas. Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Have a motion to approve and second on the consent agenda. Any discussion? Commissioner Meade.
In that, the county has been sued in federal court.
This is the consent agenda.
Okay, pardon me. Sorry. Went ahead.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next is the regular agenda.
Sure.
Commissioner Wandale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to add to the agenda, if it's possible, resolution number 18-03-682 as it relates to the support of roughly 5% to return to the collection of Anderson County from the deeds office back in 2006. We can talk about it more as it comes up, but I respectfully request we add this under item 5A.
Have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, let's see. Commissioner Yeager.
Thank you.
I'd like to move an item, please, under the Law Director, letter H, the DARC update. We have a number of people from the Emory Valley Center, and they are going to be affected by decisions we make upon this, and I'd like to move them to after the school report, please.
Okay. Have a motion second. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's going to be 6A. Motion passes. Commissioner Creasy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under new business, I'd like to move my 2 items up somewhere closer to the front. One of the persons that I'm going to depend on asked me to do that. You may want to leave a little early.
Second.
When you say closer to the front, where do you want to move to?
I'll let you be the judge of that.
And the 2 items that you're talking about is?
Sexual assault training and
all
a
11?
memorial to the Daniel Arthur Rehabilitation Center.
Okay, you do want to move 11 before 8? Before the law director?
Yes, or after, either one.
Let's move it before. We have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Any discussion on that motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Who's next?
Fritz.
Commissioner Fritz.
First of all, let me say, she or no one said anything to me about this. This is just my own observation. But ever since she became our purchasing agent, she has sat out here and not said a word and sat here basically through all of our long meetings to come up and do a 3 or 4 minute presentation and go home. And I hate to see her sit out there for that long a period of time and just watch us talk forever and ever and then do 3 or 4 minutes and go home. So I'd like to do a courtesy to her and move her before the director of schools and let her do her 3 or 4 minute thing and so she can go on home for the night. So I'd like to move the purchasing report up right after the public hearing.
Purchasing after. Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Is that gonna be a permanent move?
But we can see how it goes tonight, you know.
Is that 5B then, Mr. Chairman?
That'd be 5B, and that's for tonight, just for tonight right now.
Right.
Yeah. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Commissioner Warfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move item 7.1, the resolution 18-02-679. Move that up. General Clark is under the weather, and I appreciate him being here. I'd like to move that to be item 4A. I so move.
Second.
Have a motion second. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Commissioner Meade.
Thank you. In that the county has been sued by the federal court, in Arthur Knight, the legal counsel for Anderson County in this case and following cases, has advised that Anderson County should refrain from comment on issues related to this case and ensuing cases. I move that items 7.2 and 7.3 in their entirety be removed from the agenda and tabled until such time as is advised by Mr. Knight, counsel for the Anderson County, and recommend that we do so.
We have a motion.
Motions to table are not debated.
We have a motion to table. We have a
Second.
second. We have any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes to table. I do want to read the statement that we got from Mr. Knight. And we've got a 4-paragraph statement that came from him today. And this last paragraph says, as this case is filed and in litigation, I believe the best practice is for county officials to refrain from comment, and I respectfully request that you do so. Each and every allegation of the complaint will be thoroughly investigated, evaluated, and litigated under the federal rules of civil procedure, the federal rules of evidence, the orders of the court, and any other rule of legality applicable to the defense of this case. Period. Thank you. Okay.
I request a registered vote.
Let's go to the board and vote. Motion passes with one no vote. Mayor?
Understanding that there's no discussion on that motion, but I'll mention something during my mayor's report. Is there a way that I can get a copy of the resolution that Commissioner Wandell, that you wanted to add to the agenda in advance of its discussion?
There you go. I actually do have 2 copies. Sir, you got, okay. Thank you, Mayor. Sorry about that. I assumed you had a copy.
Okay. Next, we have 4A Resolution 18-02-6.
Mr. Chairman?
We got it.
I'm sorry. Commissioner White.
I voted no on that because I really believe that the public is wanting us to find out some answers on this tonight. I think we need to, I respectfully, I mean, I know.
Point of order, there's no discussion on it.
Well, I'm disappointed that we're not going to pursue that tonight. And I'll take that back, Mr. Meade.
Oh, we need to vote on the regular agenda as amended. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay. 4A is Resolution 18-02-679.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a 30-day referral from the February 14th County Commission meeting. I had submitted for your approval a resolution that would allow the engagement. It was a 3-part resolution. 1, that Anderson County retain Leaf, Cabraser, Hyman, and Bernstein to be its attorneys at no out-of-pocket cost to Anderson County, and with fees and costs to be recovered only from any recovery by the county and/or from the defendants directly in order to investigate potential litigation to recover funds, which would be substantial, for Anderson County as a result of the widespread distribution and use of pharmaceutical opioids in and around the county. Number 2, the second portion of the resolution is any further action, including the filing of a lawsuit, would require approval by the Anderson County Commission. If the Anderson County Commission decides not to pursue claims against any party in connection with the opioid epidemic, the county will not be obligated to reimburse its attorneys for investigative expenses advanced on behalf of the county. And 3, that the Anderson County Mayor is authorized to execute documents to effectuate the purposes of this resolution, including the appropriate attorney representation agreement, and will be required to provide all necessary information for the review in Section 1. And I included in your packet this month an article from NACO, the National Association of Counties, which I know that you all receive as county commissioners. And you'll note in there an important quote about having an advocate for the county. And this is the quote: to have an advocate for your county in that resolution room, you'll have to file a lawsuit that protects a county's interest. The defendants could create a settlement class for counties that have not sued, limiting how much they would receive relative to the counties that have sued. And so I'm bringing that back. Jonathan Taylor is here and can speak to it. And then I believe you all also requested through the Operations Committee the previous month for General Clark to also answer any questions on this as well, and he is here tonight as well.
Thank you, Mayor Frank. Again, I don't want to beat a dead horse. We've been over here now for the better part of at least the last 9-10 months. We've addressed this body on multiple occasions. I don't want to replow the same ground. I will acknowledge a couple of things, one of which is that the multi-district litigation that's now over in Cleveland, Ohio, is moving at a feverish pace. That is the litigation for the opioid case that have been filed in the federal courts. There are settlement discussions, ongoing settlement discussions already in that multi-district litigation. So I'm not trying to force the county's hands. I just want the county to know that that thing is moving at a feverish pace. And I will acknowledge that Leif Cabraser, who has addressed this body on multiple occasions, they have a seat at the settlement table. They are on the settlement team, one of only 6 or 7 firms in the entire United States that have been appointed to exclusively serve on that settlement team. So they have a seat at the settlement table. That's something that not very many people in this country can offer, and they have offered their services to the county. They wish they could have been here. There was a threat of tornadoes over in Middle Tennessee today. That is why they're not here today. But I'm here today to answer any questions that this commission may have, specifically with regard to developments. There was an article that was run in the News Sentinel that noted there are at least 2 cases now in East Tennessee, 2 that are very close here to Anderson County, one in Scott County, one in Campbell County. 2 of those counties, Campbell and Scott County, have filed lawsuits in federal court. They are the first, at least in East Tennessee, to break rank with the local DAs who have their other lawsuit. They're continuing to work their case, and it's the belief, at least, and something that we have proposed to try to not interfere with that litigation, with the litigation we're talking about here. We're talking about claims that are not brought in the DA's lawsuits. One of those is RICO claims. That's the main thrust of the federal litigation. The only way to bring a RICO claim is in federal court. That's why those cases have been filed in federal court, and those cases have already been transferred over to the multi-district litigation. The Scott County case, which I'm a part of, just got transferred last week. There was an order that was put down. So it is moving at a quick pace. In addition to that, I wanted the commission to know, and I do have, and I apologize for the late timing of this, I do have at least filings that were made in the DA's lawsuit in Campbell County that was just made on Friday of last week. And in this, you will see that the State Attorney General, Mr. Slattery, has filed a notice of appearance in those DA lawsuits. He has filed a motion to intervene as a matter of right. And he has filed a memorandum in support of that motion, essentially alleging that that the DA's lawsuits, at least that the attorneys that are representing the DA's lawsuits, that they're acting in violation of state law when they were retained without the approval of the governor or the attorney general. And so I think that's significant. The long and short of all this is that every day that passes by is potentially a day that the county misses out on a statute of limitations claim. And so that the time is now. We've been talking about this for 9 or 10 months. If the county is going to get involved, I think it should. And again, all we're asking for is to investigate. We want to be retained to investigate potential claims. We can create an attorney-client privilege so that we can talk about claims and then come back to this commission and this board and ask and seek final approval before we file the actual lawsuit. That's something we've done in all the other cases that we've been involved in. We think that works well for a number of reasons. It's informed consent. Everyone then is on the same page with regard to the claims, and it allows for a much more educated kind of decision in this process. And so I'd like to at least circulate these the notice and the motion and the memorandums. Unless the commission has any more specific questions, I'll at least concede my time to General Clark as well.
Four A is the resolution. That's what this is. Oh, yes. Yeah, he is. He's part of this.
First of all, let me say I'm happy to be with you, and I appreciate you moving this up a little bit on your agenda. I'm a little bit under the weather, and my voice is an octave deeper. I'm going to see if I can get some voiceover work in the next week or so. I'm an octave low. As Mr. Taylor said, we've been before you several times on this issue, and we can bring you up to speed, but at the end of the day, there are essentially three options that Anderson County has before it. One of them isn't really up to you, and that's the Attorney General's administrative efforts. I'm in regular contact with General Slattery, have met with him several times on this issue, and his staff more often. Tennessee is one of 40 some odd states that are, through their attorney generals, pursuing administrative remedies. I, to be honest with you, hoped that those remedies would provide some sort of adequate remedy for Anderson County, and thus relieve me of any obligation to do anything on this particular issue. And to that end, I had a number of meetings with General Slattery's office, as I had told you earlier, to seek from them information and assurances as to what course of action they would take. As it is explained, the attorney generals are engaged actively, and General Slattery's office has a leadership role among the 40 states in negotiating with the opioid manufacturers for a solution. The thrust, as it's related to me by General Slattery, of their action is injunctive in nature to try and stop the sales of drugs in Tennessee. And that's great. But in my view, and those of the other district attorneys that have filed suit, that alone was inadequate. There is a past with regard to the Attorney General's lawsuits in this matter. And I don't believe you've heard this before, but in 2007, the Attorney General, a previous Attorney General, filed suit against the opioid manufacturers and settled that case and received some money. I think it was in the neighborhood of $400,000. At least half of that money went to the Attorney General's office to pay for their operations, and some went to a public education campaign. The other thrust of that solution was for the opioid manufacturers to provide data to the Attorney General's office for the next 10 years so that the Attorney General could monitor opioid sales in Tennessee and thus theoretically be in a position to act to protect Tennesseans should those sales continue or increase. And in the words of General Slattery, obviously that effort has failed. So I think we're past the time of half measures. I think we're past the time of regulatory solutions only. Something more needs to be done, and thus I found myself in the position of having to look to see if something needed to be done by a district attorney or by the local governments. And I told you when I was engaged in that investigative process that I would keep you apprised. And for several months, I was engaged in talking to law firms, looking at various legal theories, different lawsuits that were out there to see what, if anything, Anderson County or my office should do After I did that, I came to the conclusion that because the district attorney generals only had the position under what's called the Drug Dealer Liability Act to seek all available damages from opioid manufacturers, not a subset of damages, but the full range of damages. Because the Drug Dealer Liability Act allowed for us to get past a stumbling block for a lot of product liability type cases, which is, can you prove that this particular manufacturer made the particular pill that this particular victim took on that particular day? The Drug Dealer Liability Act allows us to hold manufacturers responsible based on their market share. We don't have to determine who sold that particular pill to that particular person. If you have 20% of the market for oxycodone in Anderson County, you're 20% responsible for the damages. If you've got 60% of the market in Anderson County, you're responsible for 60% of the damages, and so on. Now, as we were engaged in this process of filing suit, there are a number of challenges. And one of them is this notion of hiring outside counsel. We've talked to the Attorney General about that. And this motion that you have been provided has been expected and welcomed. We want to get this issue decided. We believe that we will prevail, but I can't tell you that it's a sure thing. So to go back just a bit, I had indicated you had 3 different paths. One is the Attorney General's path. And in conversation with him, he has told me that it is their intention, if they recover money, to divide that money into 3 pots. One pot is to pay for an unspecified group of remedies for the state of Tennessee, whether that's extra incarceration, extra treatment, what have you. Those things haven't been determined. The second pot would be to offer that money to counties and other local governments, that they could opt in or opt out of recovering that money. So presumably, if the Attorney General is successful, and that's irrespective of anything you have to do here, but if the Attorney General is successful, he anticipates bringing to you an option to recover some money or not, based on a formula. That formula, he has assured us, would be designed to account for the differing impact of the opioid epidemic among Tennessee's counties. When I talk to my colleagues who represent West Tennessee, the opioid epidemic is almost unknown to them. And you're not seeing district attorney generals in West Tennessee file suit because they don't have the kind of opioid problem there that we have here. So, in light of that, it wouldn't be appropriate for a West Tennessee county with the same population as Anderson County to receive the same amount of money. All of that remains to be seen, whether, if, and how all of that would come to pass. The Attorney General has also told me and indicated that the opioid manufacturers are concerned about the lawsuits that have been filed by the district attorneys, and that those manufacturers have asked that those cases be resolved. And so this effort, this motion is an attempt to try and get us out of the game. They're worried about what we're doing. They would like to get us out of the way. The next option you have before you is to file your own suit. Any local government could do that. You heard that I think Scott County may have decided to do that, or I guess they have decided to do that. I looked at that option. I do not think that is the best course of action for Anderson County. I have no vested interest in saying that. There are no attorney's fees. There's no monetary reward for me or my office in this I have plenty of work to do without being engaged in this opioid litigation. And if you guys want to go do that on your own, that would be okay. But I want to tell you that that is, in my legal judgment, not in your best interest. It may be at some point in time, and if it is, I'll tell you tonight, as I have told you in the past. If circumstances change, I will come and tell you it's time to file suit. I have no reason not to divulge that information to you, get out of the way, and let you take your own course of action. But at the present time, I do not think that is in your best legal interests. If you do decide to take that path, you need to be aware that there are multiple options. And just as I looked at, I think, 7 different law firms who were proposing various theories and options, strategies, there are others out there other than the one that has approached you tonight. In fact, I am advised there's another firm that plans to come see you in the near future with yet another theory and another approach. So this may be a continuing stream that you see before you, irrespective of what you do tonight. The third option, of course, is the lawsuit that the district attorney generals have filed. Other district attorneys like myself have no vested interest in the outcome other than protecting the people that they serve. That is our interest. There's no money to be gained, just trying to do what's right for the people of our district. And so I say that because this isn't just my considered legal opinion. This path was chosen by virtually every district attorney general in East Tennessee because we feel it's the best path for the citizens of East Tennessee. Having said that, I will caution you again, as I have in the past, there are no certainties. In fact, each of these paths, each of these options is ripe with uncertainties, ripe with legal challenges, ripe with practical considerations in terms of finances and insurance and bankruptcy and the whims of litigation, outcomes of trials and things of that nature. So almost certainly, things will change. The course that seems best today may not be best 5 months from now or 5 years from now. But what I can promise you is that I will keep you informed and that I will offer you my best judgment as we go forward. And if that isn't to be involved, then it would offer no pain to me to bow out and let you take over. So with that having been said, we could talk frankly for hours about the intricacies of the legal strategies involved in the various options and the interplay between those options. But let me close with one point. There is not a we want all of the options choice for you. We cannot maintain, and frankly, and I mean this respectfully, and I have tremendous love in my heart for this body and this county. I won't continue if you want to go the other path. My feelings won't be hurt. I'll offer all the assistance I can. But we cannot have a ship with 2 captains. We cannot pursue this without interfering with one another. It's already happening. And so you must choose. If you want to continue with the lawsuit that I have filed, that's great. I will do it with passion. If you want to take a different path, that's fine too. And I will bow out gracefully. The alternative would be for us to get into a legal fight. There's something called the prior suit pending doctrine. The idea is simple. 2 parties involved in a lawsuit can't have multiple lawsuits between them. If you've already filed suit, if I've already sued Commissioner Meredith, I can't sue him again. There's one lawsuit. And normally, if I sued Commissioner Meredith a second time, he would fight that and say, wait a minute, Clark, you've already sued me. You can't sue me a second time. And the judge would hammer down his gavel, and that would be the end of the second lawsuit. In this case, it's unlikely that the opioid manufacturers would contest a prior suit pending, because the opioid manufacturers want you in Ohio. Like sending beef to the stockyard for slaughter, everyone is being gathered in one place. There are over 300 cases pending. They want us there. They have already attempted to get us there. We have successfully won in federal court to keep them from removing us to federal court. You just heard that Scott County filed suit, and they have already been removed to that case in Cleveland. You will have to use your logic, reason, and common sense to judge the options before you. I would caution you not to be swayed by a manufactured sense of urgency. This is not a sale on clothing that ends at the end of the week. Don't be concerned about another buyer for the car that may be looking at the same vehicle you want to purchase. This is going to go on for a long time. We're prepared for this to take somewhere between 5 and 10 years. And I think that's the journey that we are on. However, again, things may change, and if they do, I'll be back here to tell you.
Commissioner Meade? General Clark, I'm just asking, this is just an opinion. If Anderson County did their own lawsuit like this resolution, now the people that they're proposing to support us are saying, well, there's no charges, basically, unless we win. I think that's the okay. Then if we win, I think that there could be pretty substantial charges, because the attorneys are going to put a lot of time into this. There's going to be a lot of hours, you know. What kind of a percentage of the proceeds we get awarded would you estimate would be used to pay off the legal team if we hire them?
The typical answer to that question is 33%. However, the multi-district type litigation works in a different way. And oftentimes these are product liability suits. Almost all of us have gotten a check for $1.34 from a toaster oven that we bought 3 years ago. And that's what's typical. In those cases, the attorneys often receive millions of dollars in those cases frequently. If they're on that committee that you heard spoken about, they file an application for their fees. The court awards those fees based on a showing that they have to make. And that varies widely. So if there's a quick settlement, their hours and investment may be low and their fee recovery may be lower. If it's a protracted, technically challenging, difficult, and expensive case, then the court may award them more fees. So in this matter, really, it's going to be set by a judge in a court as opposed to a fee agreement. So this is out of the norm.
Yeah, okay. Well, recently we had a government day in Nashville that a number of the commissioners attended, including myself. And this situation about whether or not the individual counties should file their own suits was discussed at some detail, particularly at a meeting that actually followed the official meeting after it adjourned. There was an announced meeting on the opioid crisis in the state. And a lot of this was talked about, and all the staff from CTAS Legal were there. And I stayed there for about an hour and a half where this was discussed in more detail. And what I got from that is that now that the federal case, has been consolidated in the single court in Ohio, and basically the attorneys that are going to represent both sides have now been selected on those teams, right? And their feeling is that the court is expected to come up with a single broad settlement that then will be distributed to the states and by the states to the counties and cities based upon some rules that they make. Okay. If we hire our own legal team, who have already represent some other counties, in Tennessee, I'm not sure where we're going to see a lot of added benefit to make potentially a third of what we might be awarded in this grand settlement go on to our attorneys. And I don't know what that number would be exactly. If we were told that they would get us 30% more, they get the 30%, that'd be a different thing. But they're going to get a certain part of what we get. I'm not sure if having the individual counties, and this is what was basically told us by some people from the state government. I'm not sure that we'd get that big a difference in our share. They also mentioned, when I brought up the fact that I believe Anderson County is a heavily impacted county compared to a lot of the other states, they said that automatically would probably get Anderson County a bigger share of whatever settlement there is, almost regardless. And so we're likely to get, in the final settlement, we get a significant share. The other thing about this particular resolution that gives me pause, in part 3, or is it something, just part 3, it says the following, that the Anderson County mayor is authorized to execute documents and effectuate the purposes of this resolution, including the appropriate attorney representation agreement, and will be required to provide all necessary information for the review in section 1. I'm not sure that I'm ready to turn it all over to the mayor. And so I have cause to pause on passing this tonight, and but not to completely poo-poo the idea. I just want to know more before we move ahead, and that specifically was what was recommended at the meeting that I was at. Thank you.
Commissioner McCamey.
General Clark, if General Slattery is going to intervene, then where does that fit with you? Will he be working with you, or will he just assume the case and then do like they did in 2007 and like they did with the tobacco industry? They'll just collect the money and they'll keep it all and we get nothing?
Well, the most accurate answer I can give you to that question is I don't know. We are in communication and we're trying to cooperate and communicate and plan together what we're doing. However, General Slattery has a view that his action would be the best one for Tennessee. And evidently, the manufacturers who he is in negotiations with would like our lawsuits out of the way. So to that extent, we are right now at cross purposes on that particular issue. But that doesn't mean that we won't cooperate and communicate, and we'll continue to communicate. And in fact, I heard from him 2 days ago. So we're going to keep talking because we have the same interests. Irrespective of our different view about how to get there, at least for the people of Anderson County, we're trying to do as much as we can for the people of Tennessee. And so we've got a common interest, and our job is to serve the public, and we'll communicate as we do that. However, he may prevail, in which case the district attorney generals may have to decide, do we appeal that decision, or do we represent ourselves as opposed to associating lawyers to do that? And that's a bridge we haven't crossed. We'll be discussing that tomorrow at lunch in Nashville. But he also may not prevail. We don't think he will. But whether he prevails or not, we will continue working together to make sure that we get the best solution we can for the people.
Thank you.
Commissioner Smallridge.
Right. General, I think you mentioned there's no urgency in making a decision one way or the other at this point. What is the timeline you see for, making a decision?
My cautionary note was to beware of a sales pitch with an urgency attached to it. And so the lawsuit in Ohio, it's my understanding, has actually been stayed and is at a standstill, and that the judge there has instructed the parties to try and settle the case. And to be honest with you, in a wise observation, it's my understanding the judge essentially said, to paraphrase, that This litigation could go on for a decade. In the interim, Americans are dying. Can we not find a solution more quickly? Can you not find a way to help faster? And so he sent the parties out to try and reach a settlement. So there may be a settlement. There may be a partial settlement. You may find the Attorney General settle, but not the litigants in the case in Ohio. You may find that I bring you a settlement proposal, but they haven't settled in Ohio. Any of those things are possible. Today, the President of the United States in New Hampshire announced that he was contemplating litigation on behalf of the United States government in federal court. That may change the lay of the land as well. And so I would caution you to keep your powder dry, as it were, to stay the course, and as things progress, perhaps as soon as 30, 60, 90 days from now, we'll know more. We will continue to learn more. And as we do, I will continue to report to you if things have changed in any material way.
Commissioner Denberg.
Thank you, General Clark. I need clarification on a couple of things, please. Do I understand that there's two separate burdens of proof on these two avenues that could be explored? As far as this multi-county, multi-state, multi-group, that they have to prove that a particular pill came from a particular manufacturer, and that a person who became addicted took that particular pill?
That is the conventional way in a product liability case. You must establish a causal connection between the wrongdoer and the victim. Now, there are multiple theories. Mr. Taylor mentioned RICO as one. It's my understanding and belief that actually the prevailing theory in the multi-district litigation is a nuisance theory, which, by the way, we have filed as well. But you don't have the market liability damages option in a nuisance litigation that you do in the Drug Dealer Liability Act. And so I believe it is a more versatile, more broad-ranging, more complete option for full recovery.
I certainly think that I agree with that the market liability would certainly be a far stronger case to prove than the other.
But to be honest with you, that is but one legal challenge, the causation and damages. There are many legal challenges wrapped up into all of these options. The Attorney General's option, the District Attorney General's option, and the various theories in the multi-district litigation. I don't want to oversimplify. That is but one, and there are multiple. And as I said, we could go on for a long time talking about the various legal challenges. But those are arguments better suited for a court. So I don't want to cast too strong a stone. There are a number of challenges whichever way you go. And I think the best thing I can offer you is a continued evaluation and a continued report, and the status of having no vested interest other than seeing the best outcome possible.
Thank you.
Commissioner Warfield.
Mr. Chairman, I move to deny Resolution 18-02-679.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Commissioner Val.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. From what I'm understanding tonight from the General and Mr. Taylor is we actually have two issues, and I understand Commissioner Mead's point about maybe the resolution needs some fine tuning. And I apologize to my fellow commissioners because I see the effects of this problem every day. And it's not just inside the jail, it's out on the roads of my district. I wish something like this would have been done a long time ago. And it frustrates me to watch the wranglings of the legal system, as it were, as every day more men and women die and are affected by this disease that apparently affects the East Tennessee area more than any other state. I just want this to start moving backward. And I think most of my commissioners and most of the constituents in my district would agree with that. If the resolution needs fine-tuning, then I'm all for that. I say let's get on work doing that. I'm concerned that the longer we delay a decision on this, and I'm sure we're just a small little part in this big wheel, this big cog of the judicial system, but I think we've been putting this off for a while now. I have, again, various opinions where I see this personally every day. I understand the difference between state court and federal court. I just want, number one, us to find a way to hold the opioid manufacturers more accountable, and number two, to recoup some of the taxpayers' money that has been spent over the last few years to try to fight this on our local level. Now, I don't care if it's in Ohio, I don't care if it's in Nashville, I don't care if it's in Memphis. I want it to stop. And I would love for some attorneys to get together and work together to help us make that stop. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Meade.
Yeah, just permission to speak second time, just very, very briefly. We don't have all bad news to give out tonight. In a recent meeting with the ASAP folks, they announced that the number of opioids actually prescribed in Anderson County last year was a 35% drop from the year before. There is a little bit of sunshine peeking out there, but we've got a ways to go. But I think that the Attorney General suit and the federal suits that are being launched, I think the better case we have with least proof required, I think that's the route that's going to be the most threatening to the opioid dealers. And that's the one that's going to result in them settling soon. And that will help turn the tide on this epidemic that we have nationwide, but unfortunately, predominantly in the eastern United States. Thank you.
Commissioner Fritz.
Statements been made, we're not doing anything. Well, from what I'm hearing from General Clark, we are doing something. Action is being done. Suits are being filed. It's just, it just takes time in the court system, and it is being actively pursued, and we're going to get there, but it's going to take some time.
That's right. I mean, something's being done literally 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
So, so to say we're not doing anything, and it's time we need to get up and start doing something, is really is not a good statement. We are pursuing it. So as you say, something's happening 24/7. We are pursuing it with everything we've got, and we're going to get there.
To echo Commissioner Meade's good news message, Anderson County is at the forefront of this battle, but also at the forefront of innovating the programs at our jail to try and offer treatment options while folks are located in the jail are second to none that I'm aware of. We have a drug court operation that's in full swing. We are aggressively trying to locate and prosecute people, and when I say 24/7, I've got undercover operations underway right now tonight. We're trying to do education campaigns. I've spoken to over 10,000 of our school children to try and educate them through a program, making them aware of the dangers of experimenting with opioid drugs. We need to be trying everything. The problem demands it. Justice demands it. Our community demands it, as Commissioner Val said. We have a terrible problem, and we need to leave no stone unturned.
Can I just follow up on that? The issue is not whether Anderson County is doing anything or that they're not attempting to combat this horrible epidemic. The problem is the cost of doing that and the cost that's borne by the taxpayers of this county, and they have carried that cost for years now. And this is an attempt to try to recover and recapture all of those costs in the past and all of the costs in the future. With regard to what Commissioner Meade had pointed out with regard to, having a seat at the table, the only way that this county has any ability to control the settlement in this case, this body doesn't have a right or a say in controlling the settlement and guiding the settlement discussions unless and until it files its lawsuit. This county hasn't filed a lawsuit. General Clark has filed a lawsuit. And there's nothing that, in terms of cooperation, we have attempted, and we've been telling this body that we stand ready, willing, and able. And we have stood ready, willing, and able for the last 8-9 months to work cooperatively. We don't have that ability because the DAs have their lawsuit, and then the county has not taken action, and we're attempting to try to move the ball down that process and to attempt to try to take action on behalf of the citizens and taxpayers of this county. I care very deeply about this county. I have deep roots here. I have worked in this county, have defended this county. My firm has done so for a very long period of time. I thought of this county, first of all, with regard to this issue, not because of any other reason than I have deep connections here, and I thought that, and I've realized that the data is overwhelming. This county has been ravaged by the opioid epidemic. In 2016, it was 24 deaths. That was an uptick over the year before. So it's not that the county is not doing anything, it's that there is a high cost to every bit of that work that this county has done, and there will continue to be costs that are incurred and borne by this county and these taxpayers. And our attempt here is to try to recover that, and do the best that we could as efficiently as possible. And we have offered an avenue, and it's not just Scott and Campbell County. It is Scott, Campbell County, Rutherford County, Nashville, Greene County, Haywood County. There are a multitude of counties across the state of Tennessee that have filed lawsuits in addition to the DAs. And, and that's why we're coming here, and that's why we have asked this body to permit us to file the kind of litigation that we can work cooperatively, not step on the DA's feet in that process, and try to work together and to protect the county at all costs, and attempt to get the best recovery for this county.
Mr. Knight, I was going to respect you and let you speak, but actually Commissioner McCamey was before you. So, Commissioner McCamey.
Okay, I've got 2 questions that I need answered. One from General Clark. It's my understanding, if we approve this resolution, that the first part is that they only investigate. And before any settlement or anything, any lawsuits are filed, they would have to come back and get approval from this commission. Now, if we authorize them to investigate, would you automatically drop out, or would you wait until they come back and made a proposal?
I think I would non-suit the case if you did that. I would take that as a sign that you had made your choice. If you, if you hire a Chrysler salesman to consult on what kind of car you should buy, I assume you're going to buy a Chrysler. And so I would see that as an indication you'd made your decision, and I would cheerfully bow out and allow you to run with the ball and help in any way I could.
Okay, the other question is, how soon do you think you will hear from the State Attorney General as to whether or not he's going to take over your case?
That will be a court decision. I would say probably within the next 60 days would be my guess, but these things are uncertain. We won't be discussing that until noon tomorrow, and so I don't really have a good answer for you tonight.
I'm just uncomfortable with the State Attorney General taking it over because of what happened in 2007. They settled for $400,000.
That's the position I had taken with the Attorney General in meetings with him, that, will you assure me that you will pursue full economic recovery? Will you assure me that you will file a lawsuit within a certain time period if you haven't reached a settlement. And the answer to those questions was no, with respect to both. And when I got those answers, that's when I agreed to file this lawsuit.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion by commissioners? Okay, the motion is to deny resolution 18-02-679. All in favor to deny, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes to deny. Public hearing report, Vice Chairman Warfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move to approve the resolution that we discussed last meeting and this meeting both. Resolution 18-03-685. I move to approve.
Have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Wandale?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Warfield, this is the one on the zoning, correct?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay, it's okay. I just had a couple of questions. It seemed like we discussed this before, the existing storage facilities, are they going to be grandfathered?
That was my understanding, yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. And then the reason for the change was, I had a constituent ask, is the reason I'm asking these questions. The reason for these new changes proposed for zoning is, well, I guess my answer was we didn't have enough
Regulations.
regulations in,
Yes, sir.
in our current zoning.
That was to update those rules and regulations.
Okay,
for
thank you.
zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Meade?
Yeah, Tennessee law does not allow post facto laws. You can't pass a law that affects something that's already in place.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Does that conclude your report?
Yes, sir.
Purchasing.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
am I under 5A?
Oh, well, we'd move purchasing right up under that. We can go ahead and do 5A.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. 5A.
That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now on the agenda that we move to is Resolution 18-03-682. Registered Deeds is walking up. Tim Shelton. Tim can talk about this, but basically back in 2006, the state took half of the 5% of the funds and sent them to the state, leaving us at 2.5%. This resolution is in support of returning those funds back to the county, which would be roughly $35,000. And I'll let Tim Shelton summarize better than I.
Back in 2006, you'll recall that there was a move. Some of the revenues for the state of Tennessee had decreased. And so to make up some shortages that they had on projections, they went into several different government offices and basically took revenue and placed it into the general treasury. It was sort of done at the back end of a budget. We never really caught it until actually it went into play, and all of a sudden we started getting letters telling us what we were to do with the money and how to send it forward. So when we saw that, we realized that we had an issue. So we went back in, and if you remember in 2009, we went in and asked this body to pass this same resolution, and this body did so, and we were moving forward. It looked really good. We had most every county support it, and then all of a sudden we hit the financial crisis of the housing market, and there was no money to go get. So the state of Tennessee was actually upside down a little bit when it came time to go get money. They were looking for money, and in fact, if you remember, that was the year that they went across the board and made, I believe it was a 5 or a 10% cut on all departments across the board. So obviously that killed that motion. We're now in a new day. We're now going back to Nashville, and we're asking that it restore the full 5% commission. This year, it's about $35,000 is what we're asking. There have been times where that amount has been as high as $55,000, and there's the lowest that it's ever been was $31,000. So we're right now on the cusp of growing and building that back up. And so we're asking the state government to go ahead and return that full 5% commission to Anderson County for us to use here. And so that's the motion, I believe, before you, and that's the resolution before you, is to ask our legislators to endorse this legislation and to push it. I'm not about to sit here and tell you it's not a uphill climb. That is the tune of a $6 million physical note, which means it will fall in behind the state budget. Those of you that have dealt with that know that the likelihood of it passing are somewhat slim to none. But our goal is, if we don't get it this year, that maybe the governor-to-be would see fit to put it into their budget and introduce it as such next go-around. But that's where we're at today. If you've got any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Commissioner Wandale?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Tim. I just would also add to my fellow commissioners that the Tennessee County Commissioners Association strongly supports this resolution in front of us. And Tim, you're correct. It's going to be an uphill battle, but as we know in politics, you don't get unless you ask. And I would like to see those funds returned to this county. Thank you, Mr.
Are you
Chairman.
making the motion to approve?
Oh, yes. I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution 18-03-682.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Commissioner Scott?
Thank you. Mr. Shelton, where would these funds go?
To you.
Do they go back to the general
They
fund,
go back to the
correct?
county general fund.
Thank you for the clarification.
Commissioner Meade?
The Tennessee County Commission Association does support this, but those of you that know Charlie Curtis, now there's a guy that can be persistent. Because this is strongly supported, that means he's in these guys' office on a regular basis. And one of the things that he told me while I was in Nashville is that they're willing to get a bite at a time instead of asking for it all, like at half, because those fiscal notes can kill you when they go after the budget. But I think there's a good chance that we may not get all this, but we may get part of it, and we can take another bite next year. Thanks.
Commissioner Yeager?
Thank you. Is this a statewide resolution, pretty much identical to what we're passing then? All counties are trying to?
Yes, all counties have been asked to pass this resolution. It's come out of the County Officials Association. It's being introduced in each individual county. The request has been for each county to support the legislation and encourage its passage. And just to sort of go back to what Steve Meade said, to give you an idea of this revenue, if you were to take the top 3 or 4 counties out of the mix, the physical note would drop to almost $2 million from $6 million. The 4 counties that we have are actually accounting for $1 million in shared revenue with that. What we're asking is that these folks realize in Nashville how big of a burden this actually put on smaller counties. I have an office staff of 3 different people, and very proud of my budget, very proud of what I presented to you all this year. You'll be seeing that coming up. But what you see in my office is a depletion of funds because of moves like this, where revenues have just sort of been swallowed up. And $30,000 is quite a bit of money for a small office. That's about 10% of my budget.
Thank you, yes.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Purchasing.
Thanks for moving me up. I appreciate that. Do y'all need a minute to catch up in your agenda where purchasing is since? Yes. Alrighty, all right. Well, there are 6 contracts being submitted for your approval in Section A. I wanted to make a note that the correct contract number for item 1 is actually 16-0143. It was just a clerical error. Everything else is the same. That's our internal tracking number for that grant. And also, in her review of the agenda, Commissioner Denenberg noticed that the amount spelled out in that grant doesn't match the amount in section. It's in section C.1, and it just doesn't match the amount that's actually in parentheses, the dollar amount. And I spoke with Karen Uten at EMA, and she'll remedy that with the state. I think it's also just a typo. And since they created the grant, we couldn't fix that part. So if there's any other questions, would you like to approve these contracts as a group or individually?
I move we approve them as a group.
Have a motion and a second to approve as a group. Any discussion? Commissioner Meade?
I would just like to point that it's with the note that the actual amounts in that grant thing will be corrected to reflect the actual numbers as part of the motion. Because otherwise, we're approving it just like as it is presented. And it's going to need that modification. But the state knows the number, and we've got two numbers, don't know which one is right, I guess.
The higher number's right.
Is it?
Commissioner Wandell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Catherine, good evening. I'm just curious about these, I'm not opposed to, I'm just procedurally, I guess. Central Knoxville, we have 3 contracts we're piggybacking off of. The law directors reviewed these, I assume?
Yes, he's reviewed and approved, and we're not piggybacking off of them. They're separate agreements that we're buying under Central Knox, but it's for specific software. And those software agreements have to be approved by the law director, and if they cross fiscal years, no matter the amount, I have to bring them to you all.
Yeah, that was the part I was uncertain with, how it works in terms of if another entity holds the contract and then we piggyback off it, why would we need to have our own contract with that entity? It seems like our contract would be with Knox County, not each individual.
No, sir, the Central Knox is actually a vendor. Central Knox Technology. It's not Knox County. So they're not piggybacking.
But we do have a contract with Knox County as well, or no? So we just purchase these items under Knox County's purchase order number?
Knox County doesn't have anything to do with these. Central Knox is the vendor.
Central Knox is the vendor?
Central Knox Technologies.
Okay, so it's
Right.
not Knox County school
No.
system. That clears up everything. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
And then under Section B, we have 3 contracts submitting for your approval. Would you like to approve these as a group or individually?
Motion to approve as a group.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve as a group. Any discussion? Commissioner Meade?
These are saying that they're pending law director approvals. Have those been completed?
Well, when I created this agenda for purchasing committee, we continue to route the agreements through the law director. So I believe actually they all now have been approved by Jay.
Is that right, law director?
That's correct.
Thank you. That's my only question.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
And under new business, Section C, I'm submitting for your approval the request to increase the PO for the Medford fire truck by $1,120, which has been
approve. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
And under Section D, submitting for your approval are 2 items. One is a contract with Morristown Automatic Sprinkler, and the other is a contract with Kelwell Food Management. I wanted to point out a few highlights about the Kelwell contract because it's a very beneficial arrangement coordinated by Chief Avery. So I specified a few bullet points on the agenda with those highlights, including it's going to save the county about $100,000 a year.
Motion approved as a group.
It's a really great contract. That's what. Also on the county commission agenda under new items, I submit for your approval a grant from the United Way for the Emory Valley Dental Clinic.
Hold on, we had a motion first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you threw me off with a what?
Okay. Yeah.
Motion to approve the Morristown Automatic Sprinkler Company and Kelwell Food Management. So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion, second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
And now,
Make a motion to accept the grant as presented by the purchasing department.
Second.
Have a motion, second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Director of Schools.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Parrott sends his regrets. We're on spring break, so he's not here tonight, and I'm in his stead. You've read the school report. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Greg, why aren't you on spring break?
I drew the short straw, Mr. McCain. Dr. Parrott thinks somebody should be there to answer the phone when he's gone.
Okay.
You was on break last week, right?
Sir?
You was on break last week, right?
No, I'm not. No, I haven't been on break yet.
Oh, okay. I was told different, but anyway.
That's
That was
all right.
Tim. He lied to me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dale.
Thank you.
Let's take a 10-minute break. Thank you. Next is we got the DARC discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Isbiller.
Hold on a second. The mayor's report is on there.
The A of the DRAC got moved up right in front of you.
Okay.
But you're on there, but it got moved up when all the agenda got changed.
Is it new business you're going to now? Oh, okay.
Let me try to set the stage, and I've got Chuck Grant here with MBI to help me with this, but what we're back here discussing tonight is the dual use of the DARC and what the implications are when it is both a business use and an educational use. For us to save money, and we've not asked Emory Valley to do this, it's the kindness of their heart. They're looking at moving into the red brick school building that we gave them 3 years ago. But if we have that DARC building a single use as business, then we don't have to build that shaft wall. We don't have to reconnect all those fire alarms, and it ends up being a savings of over $50,000, $55,000 to us. The drawback is that we have to look at trying to get Emory Valley into their red brick school building. That is going to cost them some money. That's going to cost them money that they don't have. MBI is here tonight to give you a couple proposals, and we've got individuals from Emory Valley here tonight to talk about their situation. And maybe I think the best course of action at this point is to just go ahead and set the stage with Emory Valley coming up and letting you see what their dilemma is, and then we'll bring Chuck Grant up with MBI and tell you what some of his solutions are. But this is the basic discussion tonight, is we're trying to make that DARC building a single-use building to save the county taxpayers a significant amount of money. And if we do that, we're not going to be required to do all these life safety measures with the shaft wall, the firewall, and the smoke alarm and fire detectors. But Commissioner Yeager, you want to introduce your folks from Emory Valley?
Sure. We have Executive Director Jennifer Anderson, who's going to be here, and she can introduce her staff and board members who are along.
First, I want to thank you guys for the opportunity to speak to the commission tonight, and then for just really appreciative of the long-standing relationship that Emory Valley Center has had with the commission as long as we've been in the Daniel Arthur building. Tonight I have with me Janet Wood, who's the Vice President of Community Engagement. I have Shirley Raines, who's the Vice President of the board. I have Terry Peak, who's the Director of the Early Learning Center. I have Kevin Hicks, who's our Facilities Director, and Kevin's been in a lot of the meetings with Jay Yeager and Michael Brady. I have Jenny Shreve, who's our Vice President of Human Resources. Crystal Hicks, who's our Vice President of Operations. Bob Benning, who is the President of the board. And Bob Wells, who's our Vice President of Finance. So first of all, I kind of wanted to start and tell you a little bit about the preschool, the Early Learning Center. We currently serve 54 children, and of those 54 children, 45 reside in Anderson County. And then of the other children, their families work in Anderson County. We serve children of all abilities. So we serve children with disabilities and without disabilities. We serve children who have been kicked out of other daycares, and this is their last resort of families having childcare for their children. We serve children in foster care, and we also work with kids from the Oak Ridge Preschool who, in the afternoons when the preschool closes or when on spring break like they are now, those families would have no other place for their children to go. So we work with those children too. Also, we're just not just a daycare. We're not somewhere where you just take your kids and you just drop them off. Our teachers have degrees in early childhood education and related fields, and they prepare weekly lesson plans that are developmentally appropriate for each age group that they teach. The children have a language-rich environment and experience learning through hands-on activities in the areas of math, science, language, and literacy, creative arts, and social, emotional, and physical skills. When the kids from our preschool go to kindergarten, they're ready. So we are really proud of what we do at the preschool and think it's a real asset to this county to have that preschool here. Also, recently, other daycares have closed. And so there's not as many options out there for families whose children need daycare or childcare. And as Jay said, that we are working towards rehabbing the 2 brick buildings that you were instrumental in helping the center acquire. And we have a upcoming fundraiser that's going to go towards that rehab, and we've applied for multiple grants. So it is our goal to vacate the Daniel Arthur Center and to get into the red brick buildings, which is part of our history. I mean, those are some of the first buildings that Emory Valley Center started in all those years ago. So that's very important to do. But in order to do that, we have to have the plans of the building. And the plans are really old, and nobody seems to have the plans. And so in order for us to move forward with the fire marshal and with some other things, we've got to have those plans so we can see what we need to do so we can get in the buildings and get them ready to provide services. So from what I understand, and I'm sure Michael Brady will speak more, that the plans to recreate the plans will cost about $10,000 and a minimum of 6 months. And we know how it is. It's a minimum of 6 months, probably longer. And we were also told by the state fire marshal that once the court moves into the Daniel Arthur building, that at that point, for us to be able to remain with the children, we have to have a fire watcher. So that has to be somebody who's dedicated to watching for a fire. Over the past probably 12 to 18 months, I've had several conversations with Jay Yeager and our facilities director and several board chairs, just kind of discussing what the options were and how we can be sure that Emory Valley Center, the children are taken care of at the center. Like I said before, it's our intent to move, but we need your help to ensure that those 54 kids that we're supporting have a place to stay. And so what we're asking for is we're asking for a fire watcher to be provided to the center, and we're asking for the plans of the building, however that may look. I'm confident you recognize how vital those services are to Anderson County and the children that we support, and want to thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Chuck, if you don't mind, we step up. When she talked about the fire watcher, let me explain to you what that's about. We've had discussions with the state fire marshal, Mark Boyd, the Oak Ridge City Fire Marshal, Travis Solomon. We've met on site. They've been very helpful with this. They've agreed to give us a temporary certificate of occupancy so we can open that court. We can open that court as soon as we're ready, hopefully within the first couple of weeks of April. But we're going to have the fire watch protocol in place. And Jennifer did a good job of explaining that to you. That's someone that's dedicated to looking out for fires, whatever that be, smoke, fire, whatever. We've got a couple of ideas. We'd like to do the janitorial staff that's down there that we already have in the facility. Hopefully we can put somebody with light duty that has that ability to do that. But we have to have somebody dedicated to that resource to walk the halls during this period of 6 to 9 months until they get the plans completed and until the construction is done and they move out. But this will not delay the opening of the court, provided that we go ahead and implement the fire watch protocol. And the fire watch protocol is exactly what I told you, is somebody there dedicated that's inside the building that can be watching for fires. I want to turn it over to Chuck Grant with MBI and let him explain a little bit more where he's at on this.
Mr. Yeager, do you want to wait till he gets?
I'm finished. I don't need to be on the call.
I'm Chuck Grant with Mike Brady's office. I believe I emailed everybody in the commission a letter stating our fees for this project. We were approached by Jay to come up with some fees, and since there are no plans per se for this building, first thing we'd have to do is go out there and measure the whole building, document whatever's there, and then we'd have to sit down with the Emory Valley people and come up with a program, the classroom sizes, toilet sizes, whatever their requirements are, sit down with them, design it. There'll probably be a couple meetings going back and forth. If you're not aware, Michael Brady just finished their facility across the street, and we would go through a similar process. Obviously, it's a little smaller than the facility across the street, but a similar process of design to come up with a plan that Emory Valley would be acceptable to, produce the documents, the engineering documents, and submit to the state fire marshal, the local jurisdictions for all permitting. And we
we actually quoted $2,500 to do the as-built. We quoted $85 for the architectural, which includes all the programming, all the permitting with state and local jurisdiction, and the coordination with all my engineers. And then the engineering would be $4,500, and we have a construction administration fee of $3,000 on there, and we'd be willing to do that at an hourly rate whenever Jay or Emory Valley sees something that needs to be addressed by us. They could contact us. We would come out. We'd only charge you for the time that we spent instead of a lump sum of $3,000. So it would be a not to exceed kind of cost. The other option that y'all really have is we can go in there, leave Emory Valley where they are. We can put a firewall in. There is quite an extensive alarm system that needs to be upgraded. That is a really old alarm system that's in that end of the building. It would have to be upgraded and tied back to the new alarm system that we just put in. That is still an option on the table, but it's probably the most expensive option at this point in time.
And Chuck, can you give them a price on that? We believe it's somewhere around $55,000.
Well, we knew the wall was about $6,000, and we had already gotten estimates, I believe, for some of the fire alarm of about $50,000. So we were thinking in the $55,000 to $60,000 range is what that will probably cost.
Commissioner Warfield?
The big question I have is, what kind of assurances, if we're looking at $55,000, because we looked at we did your quote before, and we're out several $1,000s. If you're looking at $55,000, what kind of assurances can you give that it's going to be a maximum of $55,000 and maybe actually less than that? Because I, for one, very displeased with you folks that we have spent tens of thousands of dollars more than what you all had told us that it was going to take. And I think a lot of these things that were missed was kind of a common sense thing. And I think that, I know we got to get it done, but there's a point in time that you got to say, your all's past experiences have not been very good.
And you're welcome to hire any architect you want to do for the Emory Valley. We'll be glad to step down and let you do that.
Maybe we do need some bids. I mean, I know it's kind of a time issue, but we can't do this again with what we've done this time. We can't. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Val?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to ask a silly question, Jay. Sure, that's not unusual for me, but I haven't heard this answer given tonight, so I just want to make sure. We have done all due diligence trying to find the plans. We've looked everywhere we can possibly look. We've turned over every rock we can possibly turn over, and they're just nowhere to be found.
Well, the obvious rocks, we'll say that. Roger can't find them anywhere in the courthouse, and I trust Roger, he would know where they would be at. We don't have a record they were ever in the courthouse. It's a very old building. We've also been to the city of Oak Ridge and also their fire department trying to find these plans. They don't exist that we know of. Nobody seems to know that they've ever seen them. Has Emory Valley ever seen them? We would love to find them. It would save us a lot of money, but to our knowledge, we never had the plans. That building was given to us years ago, and it didn't come with a set of plans. Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
From what I can gather from all the parties that are involved, that would be the state fire marshal, that'd be the local fire marshal in Oak Ridge, our building and grounds folks in the city of Oak Ridge planning and development area. Nobody has a copy of those plans, those building plans. If we had them, it'd save us a lot of money. Jennifer, you mentioned the $10,000. Do you have the money to make up the difference?
No, that's just the number that I have.
Okay. What Chuck is down to is if we don't call him out for on-scene admin work there's no problems. We're in the neighborhood of about a $15,000, $15,500 donation to Emory Valley. It's not our building, so we can't put the money towards working on it other than a donation to Emory Valley. That's the only proper way to handle that. At some point, I know this is furious to many of y'all on here. It is to me. I don't like the way this project has gone in some areas, but we're extremely close. We're ready to open this thing. We're ready to move on. We're up against a deadline. We've got notice from Mr. Cappiello. We have to be out of that building by the end of the month. The moving trucks are coming on March 26th. We're planning on moving over to the new facility and opening that court as soon as Mr. Jones and Judge Miller get their dockets organized. We'll open the doors. We'll put the fire watch protocol in place one way or the other, the county will, so we can get the temporary CO. But and we'll continue to do that to keep the doors open on that court. But at some point, the cost for that fire watch protocol, being a person dedicated to walking those halls, looking for fires, is going to outweigh the cost of that donation. Maybe 6-8 months down the road, but at some point, it's going to outweigh the cost of that donation. So however you want to proceed is fine with me, but we do need to close this project out and move on to other bigger and better things for our citizens. That's where we're at. We can give them this donation to assist them to move into the red brick school building we gave them, or we can build the shaft wall, the fire alarm system, looking at $55,000, $56,000, somewhere in that neighborhood, according to Chuck, which is quite expensive. We don't certainly want, I wouldn't think, want to put that much more money into this building. But any questions that I can help you or Chuck can at this point, I think we've set the stage a little bit on this.
Commissioner Fritz.
Well, I'm going to play the devil's advocate here. When we finished with the court, and everybody knows how my feelings about the overruns and the costs and everything with the court, and my feelings even the messing with the ARC building to begin with. It was my understanding once we did the court, that was it. There wasn't going to be nothing else there, and we weren't going to have to fool with anything else. And now here we are having to take care of another thing. I mean, I didn't know was even going to be responsible for a watch. I mean,
nobody did. But remember, we have a lease with Emory Valley. They are tenants that pay us.
But you know, the lease should be even. In this case, the lease should be even responsible for covering that watch. I mean, but this is again more tax dollars going out from the county to take care of a situation that citizens should be responsible for. We just we're picking and choosing what nonprofit groups that we're wanting to do. Very recently, this past month, we turned down a $1,000 request from a nonprofit where they wanting to do things because we did away with nonprofit supporting groups within the county. And we said since we did away with all nonprofit things, we totally denied the $1,000 request. Now we're picking and choosing which nonprofit groups we're going to help. We need to be consistent. If we're going to help one nonprofit, then we need to help all nonprofits. And I agree this is a good group, but that was a good group. And we turned down $1,000 request. And so if we're going to help, there's a lot of nonprofits in this county. And we had a nonprofit committee that helped a lot of nonprofit groups. And if we're going to help one, then we need to open back up the nonprofit committee again and give them some money and let them help all the various nonprofit committees in, organizations in the county again. And let's not step back and pick and choose just one particular group.
Commissioner Scott.
Thank you. Mr. Grant, being that they are a 501c3 and you have done a lot of projects within Anderson County, would you not consider lowering that amount and considering making a donation to them?
We already did lower that amount from the original fee, ma'am. When we calculated our fee and our time frame, we did lower the amount. And
I'm simply asking.
That's what we proposed.
Okay.
Commissioner Denberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Yeager, it's my understanding that the fire watch person is only required to be there when both facilities are occupied?
That's correct. Business hours, both facilities. If the daycare is down or the court's down, It's not needed. It's when it's in dual use.
Dual
The
use.
building's in dual use.
And this is a requirement of the fire marshal, is that correct?
Yes, state fire marshal.
And we found this out this past week?
It's been 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay.
It's been leading up to it. The issue about the shaft wall and the fire alarm, I talked to you guys about that when we visited the building back in early December. We knew we were looking at some way, some alternative to escape this $56,000 payment for these fire safety measures.
So we've heard the figure of $55,000 to $60,000. What is the cost that we're now talking about as far as a donation, whatever, to enable the Emory Valley Center to move into the red brick building?
I believe you said, what, 15.5?
15.5.
Right.
I'm sorry if I missed that.
15.5. It's 15.5 versus $56,000.
Okay.
Or I'll give you all the alternatives. Well, we could bring that court back up here to Clinton. It's going to be an absolute mess. We don't have room for it, and we're sitting there with a court that's 90% finished. If the ones of you all that have toured that building know it's extremely close, and it looks good. The tile floor was laid here the past couple of days. I'm impressed with the work
Thank you very much.
so far.
Commissioner Creasy.
Yeah, for us military folks, we all know what Firewatch is. I checked with Jim Woodward, school finance man just now, and he asked him, could he check with the school maintenance department to see if they may have the prints, and he just did, I believe.
I just talked to Frank Hillen, and Frank Hillen says we do not have those prints.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that.
And the other thought that I had, the fire alarm, I've never dealt with fire alarms. I didn't know if Brian may have dealt with fire alarm systems, and is that something that maybe he could handle or check on?
We've got a security system in there working with his security, our vendor that has allowed that we've set up for that. There are some issues with one of the doors, but I mean, we're doing all that we can right now with the fire system as far as not the firewall, but internal.
That's in the core side. That's part of the scope of the work we've agreed to with Crean Construction. We're not talking about the fire system in the courtroom area.
Yeah, I'm no expert in the fire alarm, and I was curious if he may
Sub on that
could add to it. Yeah.
His HIS or his security.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Smallridge.
Right. I wanted to ask, is there any special training required for these fire watch people? Could it be organized volunteer-wise? And I know that's a big stretch.
It can. Mark Boyd, the state fire marshal, sent me the regulations from the state. It's pretty simple. It's somebody just dedicated that use, and he has said that he's confirmed that when the court's down, it's not in dual use, then, or the school's not there, we don't have to have it. And it can be somebody, we've talked about this, somebody that's on light duty, somebody on the janitorial staff, but it's not a 24-hour type situation, 7 days a week. It's not like that at all.
The other thing I wanted to say, and this may not be a fair statement totally, but, you know, I think in one sense we've created the problem for them.
Yes.
And I think that's something we need to consider. We have lots of great nonprofits in Anderson County, and this Emory Valley Center is right at the top when it comes to outstanding organizations. I've had a lot of contact over the years with DARC and Emory Valley Center. They just do a great job. They have great programs, and they serve a very vulnerable population. So you know, I hope we can support them. And as I say, I feel like in one sense, we have created the problem, and that should be given some consideration.
And I want you to understand, and everyone to understand that's watching this, we've never asked them to move. They're the ones that came to us willing to help with this issue. They heard the dilemma that we were in, and I applaud them for that. This county commission has never gone on record asking them to move, or any representative of this body or myself has ever said, you need to move. We're not going to do that with them. They're the ones that are trying to help us with this situation and get our court open down there.
I'd like to make a motion that we support them with a $15,500 contribution.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Commissioner Warfield?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jay, a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
What is the lease amount that Anderson County is getting from Emory Valley?
I believe it's 8. It's 8 a month. Right there. 6. What'd you say? 600 a month. Let me understand this, and this is a question I'm sure that's coming up from Commissioner Warfield. Will you still need those offices, or will you be moving out? Okay, so at that, when they move out, we'll be losing that 600.
Okay.
Anyway.
We were talking about the plans. Was that originally a federal building?
Jerry, somebody help me with that. It's been around here long enough.
It was originally a school building, as far as I know. Anderson County School building. Right. And that's why I checked with Mr. Woodward, and I was hoping that they would have the drawings.
Yeah, I was too, Jerry. Thank you.
It may be giving DOE a call. I don't think that they have the drawings, but.
Commissioner Creasy, do you recall if there was there any federal funds that used in the building of that? If so, then I would think beyond DOE that the federal government would have plans on that. I wouldn't think that they would have cleared those out. I'm just taking a guess. I'm trying to figure out how we can find
We'll continue to keep looking, I'll promise you that. And if anybody's got any ideas, somebody may be at home listening to this conversation, please let us know.
Yep, that's a good idea.
We want to try to facilitate this and move forward with the court opening. If anybody has any ideas where these plans could be, that would be very beneficial for everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Denberg?
I must have bumped it by mistake, I'm sorry.
Okay. Commissioner Creasy, do you want to speak?
I just want to support Dr. Smallwood's motion. I've been an advocate for those with special needs, like Mr. Smallwood has for many years. I served on the DARC board, and along with Robert in the years that it was winding down, and I'm very much in support of moving ahead with this and support his motion. I want to vote for it.
Commissioner McCamey?
Jay, as long as we don't have the firewall and we don't have the upgraded fire alarm system, we can't have a dual purpose there. With the 15.5 that we're talking about just to get the plans drawn, and an employee for 9 months at probably 20, depending on if they have county health insurance, maybe 30,000, we would probably be better off to do the firewall and upgrade the fire alarm system, and then we wouldn't have to worry about dual purpose ever again. But if they move out at the end of 9 months, I would hope that we could lease that to somebody.
Yes, that's our plan.
And, you know, are they going to say, no, it's a dual purpose, you've got to have a firewall, you've got to have a fire watch person, or, you know?
No, it's the educational versus business. And if we rented space out, say, I've heard various people talk about a nonprofit hub. We've had other nonprofits ask for space in that building. That's all business use. None of that's educational use. It would have to be someone that is has school children in it, like Emory Valley Center, that has an educational purpose. That is, if we have school children in there, there's an educational purpose, then we do need the firewall and the fire alarm system. If we don't, if it's single purpose, that's not needed at all. So our plans were not to have it dual purpose, to have Emory Valley out in the 2 red brick school buildings and the DARC main building where the court is. That would be single purpose and that would be business.
Okay, my next question is the fire alarm system in that building not adequate now to have children there? I mean,
No.
if we're going to have to upgrade it, then it's not adequate now.
No, not in that section. Now, the court has all new smoke and fire detectors, all new life safety, everything. But the fire marshal is telling us we don't have to upgrade it as long as we don't have dual use. The only time we'll have to upgrade the big section, the part that Emory Valley's moving out of, the part where Bryson's Closet was, Montessori, all those entities were, that if that remained educational, we would have to put those other life safety measures in place. But if we just use it as a not-for-profit hub, there's no educational use, say we lease space to United Way or whoever wants to continue being in there, then that's a single use, and the firewall, the shaft wall, and the smoke and fire alarm doesn't have to be upgraded.
Why didn't the fire marshal say something when we had the senior center in there and educational? It was dual use then.
We didn't start renovation. What triggers it all is when you trip that switch. That's why the ADA upgrades, as soon as we start the remodeling process, then that tripped the switch to where, okay, you got to come in compliance. You got to meet all codes and ADA and everything. As soon as the scope of the work of that upgrade, that remodel touches that area.
The building permits.
Well, we've had the building permit. The key there is getting the certificate of occupancy. You know what the building permit is a trigger? Yes, you're right.
Any other discussion? Let's go to the board and vote. This will be an appropriation of $15,500.
Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, are you going to add for a fire watcher person?
No, the motion was just for the $15,500 donation, so that probably needs to be separate motion. And somebody probably need to bring that up. And I would appreciate that because we've had so many convoluted GOMs is the word I'm going to use. G-A-U-M. You have to be from New River to be able to spell that. So. Motion passes.
Back to your comment, Mr. Chairman. Let's look around and see if we have anybody that's on light duty that we're paying anyway, and see if we can look for some options. I'll work with Kim on that, and we'll work with Roger, make sure all our janitorial staff is trained up down there so they can assist, and anybody that we would have in that area down there working, we'll make sure they're all trained up, and I think it's just a very short training class. But anyway, Kim, if you can help me with that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Mayor, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We already addressed the resolution for the opioid issue. What I did want to do is I would like a point of order clarification. Points of order must be addressed in the minutes, and I would like it addressed in the minutes. During the setting of the agenda, it was removed. 2 of my items were removed from the agenda, and I don't think you have the authority to do that. I, according to the rules, submitted my agenda items. I think you are within your rights and your ability and Robert's Rules of Orders to decline to entertain what I have placed on the agenda, but I don't think you have any more ability to remove what I have properly added to the agenda than you have the ability to say that a citizen cannot speak during the 3-minute section. So I would like a clarification.
Mr. Parliamentarian?
The agenda was set and mailed out, and one of the items on the agenda is approval and correction. And by you making the statement that we weren't going to discuss item 2 under the mayor's report was, in my opinion, an approval or correction to the agenda as submitted. So, in my opinion, it would be proper to, under item number 4, approval and correction of the agenda, it would be proper to remove it if we so voted, and I think we did vote on that, did we not?
That's correct.
So according to the rules of County Commission, do your rules address removal of items from the agenda under the rules?
No, just approval and correction. And this agenda was sent out with things that were put on it, but it's up to this commission to approve that agenda prior to it being acted on here tonight. That's why it's at the top.
Right, but agendas are an order of business. Agendas are order of business.
Right. And the 4th item on that agenda was approval and correction of the agenda.
But to my point, agendas aren't intended to silence either members of the public or members that wish to appear before this body. The agendas are for the order of events, which we rarely follow, as we saw tonight. But they are not to silence, the agenda is not to silence individuals, and I think we've dealt with that in the past here with this body. So looking at your rules for County Commission with regard to agenda deadlines, the number of minutes that a member is allowed to speak, all of those things, I don't think removal of items from the agenda is anywhere under the rules of this commission.
We didn't remove them. We just, the motion was to not entertain those.
Okay.
We didn't actually remove it.
Okay, so then
it's still on the agenda, the printed agenda.
Okay, so then I can speak it aloud, but then you're not going to act on it.
That's what our outside legal counsel has instructed us to do, is not to take any action or to discuss it.
Okay. Well, then I will go ahead and read it for members of the public at home. I had not intended on reading each item.
Mayor, hold on a second. Hold on a second. And I had intentions on handling this a different way. But I have been going over my mind a statement to make to the press, because I didn't want anybody to think that we were trying to do anything to think that we were not being anything but transparent. But the one thing that we have to do is to, and I'm going back to my original note.
But that is not a gag order. I mean, there's a difference when we're dealing with legal matters. A judge can issue a gag order, and I did talk to Art Knight about this earlier before I came to this meeting. He has a particular case in Chattanooga right now where the judge has issued a gag order. I brought the same document as well, Mr. Chairman, with all respect, and it is a recommendation. But the things I am asking for, and I take a strong stand against sexual harassment, and I believe that if a woman comes in tomorrow and it's against a fellow employee or another elected official, that I would like assurance that it will not be until October that we hear about it in this body. And so the questions that I have asked here are for clarification of procedure. If you don't want to address that, I will continue to review those on my own, but I do not think you have the ability to silence me when I have put this on the agenda. All you can do is not vote on it.
That's not my intention. Which ones do you want to read?
I would just like to read them all for the folks that are watching at home and the folks that have come to this meeting.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Wandale?
May I speak?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mayor, as the parliamentarian said, we tabled items 2 and 3. And the reasons we tabled them was that on the advice of the counselor that represents Anderson County from the insurance side. I understand your frustration. I understand you have items that are pertinent to the case. But I've sat up here a good while, and one thing I know about you is you know the laws. And I think you're smart enough to know that any of these items you discuss will have an impact on the outcome of the case. And I find it odd that you would want to stand at that podium and talk about any of these issues knowing that the case is filed in federal court. I've read through your information. I think you bring some valid points, but I do not believe this is the forum for us to have that discussion. You may differ on that opinion. Obviously, you seem to. I respect that. But I think in this case, it's best served for the people of Anderson County that we let the counselor who represents the county in this case, and that is not Jay Yeager, that is Mr. Art Miller, who you said you spoke with earlier.
Art Knight.
Art Knight, I apologize. We got so many Arts running around. Art Miller does a great job for our county. He's the health director for those who don't know. So I'm not trying to be demeaning or disrespectful to you. I think you put a lot of effort into your findings. I think there's some merit to some of your findings, but I'm not going to sit here tonight and debate those knowing we have a legal case in front of us which would have major impact on that, and right now it looks like it's going to have to be discussed in court and dealt with in court, unfortunately, and that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Meade.
Robert's Rules of Order, which we follow, makes it very clear that after this kind of a motion, there's no discussion allowed in the meeting. It doesn't say all of this is going to be taken care of. All this is going to get addressed. But a number of these items are asking us to research to see whether or not some things could have been done different during this process. Okay? And there's always something you could have done different. But we would be providing the information that we research to help the people that are suing us. It doesn't make sense to help the people that are suing you, except to the point, to the reasons that discovery and all those things happen, the questions always get asked. And I guarantee you that Art Knight wants to know the answer to every one of these questions. Because if there's any potential vulnerability, he wants to know what it is. And I think we need to let him, the professional that specializes in this kind of law, we need to follow his advice, or we're putting ourselves in peril. I think that most of these issues, if answered in a public forum, increases the risk for more for additional lawsuits and bigger, possibly much larger awards from those lawsuits, because the way we provided them with the language to come back after us. Now, I want these things all to be answered. I want them to all be taken care of, but it doesn't need to be done where we supply this to the others. This should be handled in executive sessions, just like we handle other stuff, that legal issues with the county, not in a public forum like this. Thank you.
And I think, to your point, Commissioner Meade, my intent is to also prevent a similar scenario in the future. For instance, the release of one of the women's names in an unredacted format that was distributed to the media. And so when I see things like that, part of my concern is also getting assurances. I am not over that office. Is getting assurance that that does not happen again. I'll move on to the item that is still on. Pardon?
I want to say, Commissioner Creasy.
My comment was going to be to the mayor, but she said she was going to move on, and I'll let that ride.
Well, I've got one thing to say. is this agenda is already public.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the decision I make is not to air to anything that would be said in public that would go against the taxpayers of Anderson County. So this agenda is already made public. So, and I respectively ask just not to read it in public, but everybody, what I'm saying is it's made public so everybody can read it. But I don't want anybody to think that this county commission, and me specifically, is not trying to hide anything, that I don't want anybody to think that we're not trying to be transparent. But myself, I'm trying to do the best that I can to help protect the apparent victims, the citizens, the taxpayers, and the employees, and I know you are too.
I am doing the very same thing. Yes, sir,
And you
Mr.
are.
Chairman.
Yeah, we're all on the same page here.
Yes.
And I agree with that. Thank you.
I will leave that I don't believe it's an appropriate motion to silence people, but the item number 4 was not taken off the agenda, and that is to request a review of the reporting structure of HR by the comptroller and CTAS for compliance with state law. I checked with Kim. Your motion only dealt with removing item 2 and item 3.
Okay, hold on. See, I missed the board. First is first, Commissioner Creasy.
No, I gave up, and I said she was moving on.
Okay.
And I'd have no more comment.
All right. That means
It is a public, it's on the website
Yeah.
for anybody that wants to look at it, but she's being sued along with the rest of us, as well as the citizens of this county. We're all defendants,
yes.
and
That's
we've got to protect those defendants, which are the taxpayers and the mayor and each of us and all of our employees. And
This is a very unfortunate incident that we're having to deal with. Commissioner White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess what my big concern is, the talk around this county is the people are expecting this commission to address this, and we're not addressing it, according to Mr. Knight. But I think the integrity of this commission is at stake. It is a big mess, or a GOM, as you said.
Yeah.
No, Mark, we've not addressed it. All that we've done is just, we're going to pass over it. But I think the public is demanding that we address this to a point to where that we find out who dropped the ball.
Well, Commissioner White, what happened is once the federal lawsuit, and let me go back, and Kim and myself, we met with, if the board will give me a few minutes to explain what I've went through for the last couple of weeks.
Please.
As Kim and myself, we met with the law director, we've met with the district attorney, we've met with CTAS, and with the district attorney, he's met with the state attorneys general. And we have done everything that we can do in dealing with this suit, okay, with what's going on with the sexual harassment allegations. The only thing, we have done everything that we can absolutely do. And what everybody has said, from the state attorney general to the district attorney to CTAS, and we're talking about hours of talk with these in meetings, and even CTAS, when it comes to an elected official, and you can look on the Channel 10 website, and I've said the same thing, when it comes to an elected official, we have no jurisdiction. It's up to the people that elect you. We have no grounds for an ouster suit unless if they are convicted of a felony. We have done everything that we can do. Right now, what we have to do, and that is what, and Kim can verify this, that's what everybody has told us. I know that's not what you want to hear.
No, it's not, Mr. Chairman.
And that's what Kim and I both said. That's not what we want to hear.
What about the women that's working in that office right now? What about those women?
That's exactly what Kim and I said.
There's nobody.
But Kim can tell you, and that's what she was emphatic about.
All right, thank you.
And we told the head guy from CTAS, that's not what we want to go back and say. But he said, but that's just the way that it's set up. Because an elected official, there's nobody that's over them but the people that put them there. Commissioner Warfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under Rules of Procedure, Rule 2, the following shall be the order of business. Under Rule 2, Item 7, last paragraph, and I quote, agenda items must be submitted to the appropriate committees before being presented to County Commission for a vote. Items that have not been submitted to a committee can be included on the agenda as part of the department or elected officials report or by commissioners under new business for a brief discussion to determine which committee it should be assigned to or determine if needs immediate attention. County Commission can either refer such items to the appropriate committee by majority vote or with a 2/3 majority vote can take it up for immediate discussion and vote if it is an emergency or action needing immediate attention. That's our rules of procedure.
Yes, sir.
There was not a 2/3 vote to add this to the agenda,
To add what?
to add those items. Wasn't this, was this included in the original agenda?
This would be
Yes.
number 4.
Number 4.
Number 4 was not excluded.
Okay.
Commissioner Smallridge.
I just wanted to respond to Mr. White, Commissioner White. I would hope that our citizens, our Anderson County citizens, would understand the problems we have with the legal system, the way things are, the court case. I think we can explain that to them, and hopefully they would understand that that's the only course of action that we have at this point.
Okay, let's go back to number 4. Is a request for review of a reporting structure of HR by comptroller and CTAS for compliance with state law. Do we have a motion? Commissioner McCamey?
Terry, do you need a motion from this body to do that? or
Yes, I
can you
think it
not?
would be appropriate to have both the commission and the county mayor to request so that it is a uniform question.
I'll make the motion that the mayor be allowed to contact the comptroller's office and CTAS for compliance with state law.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Do we have discussion, Commissioner Meade?
She already has the authority to do that. We all of us can go to CTAS with any question we want. And so I'm not sure why it requires special treatment. As far as I'm concerned, she should feel free to be able to contact CTAS and this stuff. I contact CTAS all the time.
She's got the authority if we voted that.
She already had the authority.
Well, we're going to give it to her again.
And so do you. You can call.
Okay, let's go. Any other discussion? Commissioner Wandale?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you restate the motion?
Request review of a reporting structure of HR by comptroller and CTAS for compliance with state law. She's asking for our review.
So, yeah, I see it. I guess, I mean, so then what? After she contacts, the mayor contacts these offices and CTAS and comptroller's office, then what?
Well, and the reason I'm asking for a joint request is that information will come back to all of us.
Okay, so you're going to go gather the information and come back to us and report what you find out?
Well, yes, but I would hope that, I think CTAS and the comptroller should include you in on the correspondence as well. Don't want this just to be a mayor question.
No, I'm just asking because there's really no clarity to the motion. I mean, it just says, go meet them and review. I just wanted to see if we can get some clarity to the motion because let's say you come back and you want to make some changes. That motion doesn't support changes.
No, sir, and again, that would be up to you all.
Okay.
I just want to know if it's in compliance with state law.
We're on the same page.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next,
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Wandale, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Mayor, I had just one question if I could, and you may not know the answer, but the TDOT Clinton Highway repaving, have you had any updates or anything you can share?
Yes, I have. It's been a while, so I will have to get back with you. I want to say the last rural planning meeting I was at, I just had a conversation with one of the gentlemen over there, and I think it's scheduled.
New business up.
I mean, I can't remember if they
think it's
said
scheduled
spring or fall. I just
Of
can't
this year?
remember. Yes, yes,
All right,
yes.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next, we move 2 items out of new business up in front of the law director under Commissioner Creasy's suggestion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the items, I had a call from Mrs. Martin with the Oak Ridge Heritage and Preservation Association, which Robert is a member of that board, I think. And Mrs. Martin is an advocate for history and preserving the history in Oak Ridge, and she was asking me about the Daniel Arthur Center and had we had any plans to memorialize that facility and recognize the founders and the great job that they've done for the people of this community, the special need folks, and along with that, Emory Valley falls in that same category and has taken over a lot of that same responsibility. And I'd like to make a motion that we send it to an appropriate committee to look at what type of memorialization we can do for Daniel Arthur and the founders, a plaque or whatever that maybe we could do and recognize that great good that they have done over the many years, or did over the many years, as well as Emory Valley and Center.
So you want to send that to operations? Is that what you want to do?
Well, if that's the appropriate committee, yes.
We have a motion and a second to send to operations.
That was expensive.
Commissioner Smallridge.
Yeah, just a point of order. I'm on, as Mr. Creasy mentioned, I'm on that board, and I guess it's appropriate for me to abstain. Is it, or is it necessary for me to abstain being on that board?
I wouldn't think so.
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's just a referral motion. That's great. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
And the next item was, I took it on my own to contact CTAS last week to ask them if they had any sexual harassment training that they could offer county commission or county employees. And they said that they didn't have any program in place to accomplish that, but they're looking at it, and they may have it in the future. I very much would like to recommend that we have training by our HR department for all of our employees and our elected officials. And I asked our HR director if she would look into what that may cost or give us an idea of, and from her experience and background, what she may have to offer in that area.
I also reached out to CTAS, who said that they didn't have anything in place but was working on building a program. Tennessee Risk Management, who is our insurance company, often does several of our trainings for us on our behalf. When I reached out to them, they do have a very high-level 20-25-minute training that they can offer, but at that time I was advised that we probably needed something a little more in-depth, especially in regards to a supervisor position. So what I done is I reached out to 2 of our current vendors to see what they had in place that they could offer. Our contracts do not cover this type of training. It would be an additional cost. They would come on site. Two of the vendors, they are running pretty close with the pricing. So I have reached out. The employee training is about 1 hour in length, and the supervisor is an hour and a half. Of course, it does cost a little bit more for the supervisor training. And the goal of the training is to help everyone understand the negative impact harassment has on the entire workforce in hopes of decreasing the issue. And I've asked them for detailed, specific information on the sessions. I haven't received that back yet. But the cost is running anywhere from $7,600 to almost $7,900 for the training.
That's per individual?
No, that's to do the employee and the supervisor training. That's all of it, for them to come on site and do it all.
Mr. Yeager?
Mandatory? Would we make that mandatory?
I would think so. That would be my vote.
Take it or fire?
I don't think we could make it mandatory for elected officials.
We can't even make the elected officials adopt our ethics policy.
We can't make the elected officials adopt our personnel policy.
I knew it, I just wanted to throw that out. I knew it.
We would like to, but we can't make them do anything. Mr. Yeager?
Thank you. This training, would it require the county to kind of shut down for a one session? Or do you have
No.
even that much information about it yet?
No, it would be like different classes, and she would be here for a couple of days.
Oh, okay, all right.
Doing those trainings.
All right.
But they would be on site to make it a little more convenient. And we would look at either getting this room or maybe the community center for a large amount of.
So we would not be able to make this mandatory for anybody? Is that right, Jay?
No.
Okay, just officials. What about the officials' employees?
Well, it depends if the officials has adopted our personnel.
Oh, okay, that's the.
Now, there's another option here that might be a little bit more viable, and that's to send Kim or Stephanie or somebody in HR to become an instructor for this. That way, it'll be a continuous situation where we have an employee that comes in for orientation. We can go through the high points of this, and we can conduct these classes all the time without having to recontract with somebody. We send Kim or Stephanie or both, get them both trained up as certified instructors. And I believe SHRM has a course in this. And at that point, then they can conduct the training anytime we need it, or any particular office holder that wants the training for his employees, or if we need to reinforce that training and do some maybe some updates to it, we'll have that ability.
I'd be certainly in favor of looking at that option for sure.
Do you mind getting some prices on getting you and Stephanie both trained up in this situation, in this particular area of expertise, and then we'll bring that back?
Yes, sir.
Do we need a motion, Mr. Chairman, or for requesting her to further investigate this?
Yes. So she'll be glad to do it, yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for letting me bring this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kim and I have unofficially discussed a couple of other options, and Jay, maybe you can give us a legal opinion on the viability of this. One thing that makes me proud to work for our sheriff's department is ever since I started here in '98, we train on sexual harassment every year. That's a class with about 4 others that we train on every year.
And you test on it.
And we test on it. We have a policy in place. We have had since long before I started. Chief Johnson and his predecessors wrote it a long time ago. The lesson plan that we use, which I thought I emailed Kim, but apparently it got lost in cyberspace somewhere, has been approved by the Tennessee Corrections Institute. Would it be possible? And this would really be stretching, and Jay, tell me if you think this is not a good idea. We use the material that we've already gathered. A lot of the information we've already gathered at the Sheriff's Department is not just law enforcement oriented, it's general public oriented, maybe that would be a good starting point, and if we can get it signed off on, then me, you, Stephanie, whoever, if we can get it approved, we'll do it for free.
Free?
That's a great idea, if we can get somebody to endorse it. It's
Okay.
like Tennessee Correctional Institute, and believe me, when I
CTAS or
say
whomever.
this, and this is not patting Commissioner Val on the back, he's by far our best instructor that I know of in this county. He'd do a fantastic job. So it might be a situation where we want to get Commissioner Val and Stephanie and him, everybody, but we need a body like SHRM, Society of Human Resource Professionals, to endorse this training program. That counts so much more than us just coming up with our freelance type program. We need a body that's accredited, that can say, yeah, that's a great program. It touches on all the areas. But we've got the instructors within the county to produce this instead of, my point is, instead of hiring somebody on the outside to come in and do it every few years, keep somebody here trained up that we can do a continual effort and refreshers and approach it during orientation. I think that's the most efficient way and effective way to do it.
Agreed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And that's exactly where I was going to go with my questioning. Simply because if you do have a change of hands in a department, it only makes sense that you don't want to have to spend another $7,500 to $7,900 to have someone come back in and retrain. Kim, one question for you. Some time ago, we had modified the employee policy.
Yes, ma'am.
With regards to sexual harassment and bullying and so forth. Is there anyone that has not stepped up and signed off on that?
Yes, there has been.
How many?
You're talking about department heads, elected officials?
Sure, yes, all the above.
You can answer that question, how many?
Off the top of my head, I can't answer the total amount off the top of my head. There's several.
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 Several elected officials have not adopted?
There has been at least 3 that I know of off the top of my head.
If you want to ask her that question, she can have that, answer it in private.
Okay, thank you.
See, that's what it bothers me about this.
I understand, Jerry, it bothers everybody.
Well, it just don't make any sense to me.
That's why we offer and continuously offer, including the mayor. If you want to know the details, please come by. We don't have any problem discussing these in private. I don't know how many emails I've sent out. I talked to the mayor right after the executive session. I told her I would to discuss the case in detail with her. I've told her since then. And I don't know how many times I told you guys in the past several weeks.
Commissioner Fritz?
I'm glad to.
Well, mine's just a general statement because I know with everything that's going on, people's even asked us, do you all undergo sexual harassment training? And since we talked about opioids earlier, I don't know about Commissioner Alderson, but I know a while back somebody asked, have y'all ever considered being drug tested? Well, me personally, I'm drug tested monthly. So, I mean, I'm drug tested more than you ever think about being drug tested. And then sexual awareness, I undergo sexual awareness training on a yearly basis. So I'm well trained there. So just so people's asking questions about whether I'm there, I'm definitely there. So,
Commissioner Warfield.
Just a real quick statement. We may want to check with the school system. We have to go through yearly a training. It's online. There's questions at the end. And to be honest with you, I don't know if that's something that the county could share.
That may be a great, I'll check with Jim and we'll see who's signed off on that. And it is specifically for education employees, but that may be something.
That's something that they could keep a record of when they take the test, and you have to pass that test. If you don't answer enough questions correctly, then you have to go back and do it all over again. So that's a really good way of recording which individuals have done this.
Mr. Smallridge.
I was just wondering, this discussion raises a question. To what degree, when we have training, can we mandate all employees, including elected officials, appointed officials? To what degree can we mandate that?
Well, there's some history there. Okay, the law in Tennessee is these elected officials have the opportunity to adopt their own personnel policies. Now, back in 2009, we had a group of elected officials here that enacted the comprehensive and consolidated personnel policy. That was fantastic. So when we had an issue, an HR issue, an employment relations issue, we could turn to one book. Before that, there was 4, 5, 6 different personnel policies in this. But under Tennessee law, these elected officials have the opportunity to adopt their own policies. We have at least a couple that I wish they would update their policies, but some of them are new. But that's the case right now. Can we force them? No, absolutely not.
Thank you.
Now, general fund employees, that's a different issue. That's a much different issue.
Any other discussion? Mayor.
Yes, I didn't get to hear the full breadth of this conversation, but if we are discussing some issues with the policies that need updating, there are a couple of issues with regard to the amended policies. One of them is we've had a couple of motions at the HR committee where the drug policy is supposed to have been updated to comply with law. The Facebook policy is also not in compliance with Supreme Court rulings, and it needs to be updated. And those two questions have been asked, and time has ticked by and ticked by and ticked by, and these issues have not been addressed in the personnel policy.
Well, let's send that to operations.
Sure.
We just had an HR meeting a couple months ago. You didn't attend, and every one of those were addressed.
Let's not start there. We can send it to operations and take care of it.
It goes to HR. Is where it
Goes to HR. Commissioner Alders, do you have a motion? No. Okay. All right, Law Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're looking at Section A, contract approvals. Does anyone have any questions about those? Okay, the Tuppertown deed, you requested that be done. We have completed that. We've got a deed back. That's in the county's hands.
Did you need a motion on those contract approvals?
No. Those are approved by you.
Commissioner Wandale?
Sorry, Jay, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I just had a question. Item D, driving school, notice to terminate lease from occupant. We'll lose that revenue now, I guess?
Unless we replace it, sir. We may, that's pretty attractive office space, so we may have somebody want to look at that.
Who can I contact, Mr. Chairman, to get the current revenue generated by the senior center?
Natalie.
Who?
Natalie.
Natalie. And that'll obviously include all revenue that has been generated in whatever capacity, rentals or parking or what have you.
Yes, anything. They're required, remember, to run their revenue through our bookkeeping system. So.
What about donations?
Yeah, every bit of that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think Cherie keeps a separate set of books, she told me, so that they should coincide with what Natalie's got.
Should I go just to Cherie or?
No, Natalie.
Okay.
That's where
Actually, I think the way that Finance Committee is doing that now is that you go through, I think, Chairman of Finance for any of those questions.
Okay. That's fine.
That's the way you do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
you. Back to item B, Tuppertown D, that is complete. That title is in Anderson County's hands. I think the mayor has got a couple options there she's talked about to you before. We did pay $10, and that check has been sent to Oliver Springs, so that is back in the county's hands. Item C can be removed. We're not quite ready to close that. You saw the email on that this afternoon. The driving school, we just talked about that. Item E is an action item we need to address, and that's the Public Records Request Coordinator. Under the policy you approved, it had stated Russell Bearden was our request coordinator. Kim's been handling those duties ever since as HR director, so I'd like to change all those documents, and I need your approval to put her in there. Thank you.
Motion second, discussion.
Would it be better just say HR director?
Yeah, I like that even better. The state template had a name in it, and I'd rather refer it to a position, honestly. I think that's much better.
Who made the motion?
You did.
I didn't.
I think it was
Mr. White. For it to be. So
Would you
it needs
accept
to
that
be.
HR director instead of putting names in there because, 5 years, 20 years from now, we may need to change that. So.
Who had the second?
I did. That's fine.
Okay. Have a motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, item F, just a little bit of notice there. The city of Oak Ridge now has given us two checks, $30,000 and $40,000 towards the General Sessions Division II Court for a total of $70,000. Item G is I've sent you notice by email. We have got a notice to vacate the existing building owned by Vintage Development. We need to be out of there by the last day of March. Again, as I said earlier, the moving van will be there on the 26th. I want to particularly thank a couple people on this move. Number one, Chief Johnson. He's providing all the backbone and labor with inmates on his work crew to help us there. He'll be handling all the big stuff, the big furniture, the fixtures, the office cubicles. He does not want the inmates to handle any of the personal items or anything like that, and I understand that.
Hold on a second, Jake. Mr. Scott?
I can wait until he's done with this.
Okay.
He's on a roll.
Okay. Next, we're doing the painting and waxing the areas outside the scope of the work, and that's Roger Lloyd has been tremendous on this endeavor. He's volunteered and been down there working on the shrubs. If you've noticed here lately, all those old shrubs have been removed. They were too woody. He's mulching all around the building. He'll be putting up the signs, and he's going to help us with the rest of the stripping and waxing on the areas that were outside the scope. If you've seen it, the file storage area, the DA's area, the kitchen area, all that was outside the scope of work. This coming weekend, we'll have another inmate crew that'll be painting the walls of all the other areas that are outside the scope of work that were not, that the contractor didn't have to do. So we're going to use the same colors, and unless somebody wants something different down there, an office holder, but we're going to be doing the cabinets, and I think Avery's going to have another work crew assisting with that. I've sent you an email on the pews. There's a little bit of an issue there. The new owner of the General Sessions Division II, the old building, has quoted us a price of $375 on those to buy those back. I've been going back and forth with Mr. Cappiello. I'm waiting for an email in return. We saw, or one of my secretaries saw on Craigslist, we can buy those for a church in Clinton for about $2,000. So we may be going that route. I just want to give you whatever's cheaper, we're going to do. And I just want you to be aware of that. We may not be buying those old ones. But if I sent you a copy of that lease, if you look on the back of it, some of the terms, we were paying along $100,000 towards the equipment. My question to Mr. Cappiello or the fixtures is, at what point do we gain title to these? We're paying for them. At some point, we've got to get ownership of these. We can't say, well, you have a certain percentage you hadn't paid, and I'm hoping he understands my issue there, that we own some of this at some point. We've been paying this for years. But anyway, the windows, I did want to tell you about that. There is the new windows across the front of that building you graciously approved before. Those are commercial, storefront, high-efficiency windows. They're being replaced right now. They look excellent. There's 4 windows, 2 on the far west side, right there at the entrance, and 2 on the front towards the east side down near the main entrance that are about this size. If you recall, I spoke to you and I've sent an email out to you about a gentleman that makes windows in Claxton. He made all these inside the courthouse. He's offered to build those for us at cost. You've never approved those, that second set of windows. But at this point, we've got a county commissioner has stepped up and wants to donate those 4 windows. So I appreciate that very much, and that's an awesome contribution to this project. We're not asking you for an additional appropriation, but for a commissioner like that to step up and say, I think it needs to be done. It looks a lot better. Certainly the one that's got a window unit hanging out of it is tremendous, and that commissioner is Phil Yeager. So thank you, Phil. I appreciate that.
Do you need a motion to approve his gift?
No. But thank you very much. That was awesome. Anyway, you've got the 2 lawsuits, and I just wanted to, I've sent you copies of those. I'm thinking Coal Creek has given up at this point. They non-suited the other case that was based on the same legal theory. And as I said last month, maybe this issue has been put to bed, and it's really, they've been arguing this for over 2 decades, but now it could be over. The resolutions, I wanted to make sure, and this is just a point that we need some clarity on, did we approve the Sarge, and did we approve by vote the resolution honoring Whitey Hitchcock?
Second.
Have a motion second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Okay, that's all I have unless you have
Commissioner
questions
Scott.
for me.
Thank you. Jay, on
Yes, ma'am.
item F, the City of Oak Ridge contributions to the DARC,
Yes, ma'am.
you said it's $30,000 and $40,000.
Yes, ma'am.
What does that cover?
Whatever we needed to cover. I think their intentions was to help us get the HVAC unit, but it's a great sign of partnership with them, and they want us to know that they're willing to help as much as they can. That court means an awful lot to the citizens of Oak Ridge, and I'm very gracious and grateful that they were able to come up with this money.
I appreciate the clarification. And to the City of Oak Ridge, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much.
Mr. Warfield.
Something close to Commissioner Emmert's and my heart, I guess, is Glen Alpine Convenience Center. Really concerned about this. We keep, we're supposed to close by the end of May. Do you have any estimation as far as when we can close?
Oh, we're ready to close. A mayor, I think, wants to get title insurance on it, and that's up to her. I told her in an email today that the current sellers have owned it since '95. Right. The adverse possession statute of limitations has run on it, but if she wants to get title insurance, that's totally up to her.
How long, do you have any idea? I don't know about the state of Tennessee. How long does that take?
It shouldn't take long. It's a pretty easy title to look at, especially since somebody's owned it that long. It's not like we're just dealing with a new owner of that property. And I'm sure she'll move on it expeditiously in the next few days and get that ordered. We have a couple of title companies here in Clinton that may write that policy with no problems whatsoever. But,
so no problem with closing on time by the end of May?
No, we're ready right now at this moment. Okay. The gentleman was coming by Thursday, but I think you saw the email from the mayor.
Yes,
she wants to get the title insurance, and that's fine. As soon as she gets that and she gives me the go-ahead, then we'll set it up and we'll close this deal and we'll have that property and be ready to move forward with construction.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, sir.
Anything else I can answer for you tonight? Okay, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you.
Next is reports from committees. Budget Committee report.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So to begin, the cash and fund balance report is as of February 28th. The unassigned fund balance is $3.9 million. I'll point out that it's below the $4 million target. Restricted fund balance is $1.3 million. Committed fund balance is $2.2 million. Assigned fund balance is $300,000. And non-spendable fund balance is a little over $1 million, bringing us to the total fund balance reserves of almost $8.8 million. The cash balance as of the end of February is approaching $12 million. And I'll note that this is the highest cash balance over the last 44 months. From that, moving on to the charts and graphs. The general fund balance cash trends, as I indicated, is the highest it's been over the last 44 months. It's favorable to past trends, and you'll see that all of these financial indicators are favorable as we are 2/3 through our fiscal year. To the right, the general fund actuals year to date as of February, you will see revenue is up, expenses are relatively flat, and for the first time this fiscal year, we have a surplus with that gray bar. As property taxes are collected, or our collections end, I expect the surplus to decline. And comparable to fiscal year 17, revenues are up $1 million, expenses are relatively the same, and the surplus is up $1 million. And then finally, the general fund unassigned fund balance trends. Unassigned fund balance is $165,000 above where the Anderson County government finished last fiscal year. And I expect this too to decline over the remainder of the fiscal year. And it is roughly 2 months' worth of operating expenses. I also included the local option sales tax trends. This is by calendar year over the last few calendar years. And you'll see that in 2016, it increased $2 million over the previous calendar year. December was an anomaly. We believe that there was an error at the state. And then again in 2017, it increased almost $2 million. This growth is predominantly from Oak Ridge, and 29% of this revenue growth, or of the revenue period, goes to Anderson County Schools. So that's roughly a $540,000 increase in their revenues. 3% is retained by Anderson County government, and that means roughly a $50,000 increase coming to the government. So I just thought that was interesting and wanted to show you the increase in the local option sales tax. Any questions on the graphs and charts? Thank you. Okay, so now moving on to the summary of the budget amendments. Submitting Group 2 appropriations school for your consideration individually or as a group.
For approval as a group. Second. Have motion second. Let's go to the board and vote. It's appropriation. Motion passes.
Group 3, transfers school, submitting for approval individually or as a group. These two require a board vote because they're major line item or payroll.
Move for approval as a group. Second. Have a motion and second to approve as a group. Go to the board and vote.
We're still in discussion.
Motion passes.
Submitting Group 4, appropriations, non-school, submitting individually or as a group.
Have a motion and second to approve as a group. All in favor, go to the board and vote. Motion passes.
Moving on to Group 6, appropriation from the general fund unassigned fund balance. There's one. Submitting for your approval.
Have a motion second, go to the board and vote. Motion passes.
And then finally, Group 7, under miscellaneous A, Fund 101, I'm asking for the appropriation into next fiscal year's budget for the remainder of the Medford fire truck.
That needs to be a board vote.
I'm sorry?
That needs to be a board vote as well.
Yes, please, because it's appropriating money that hasn't been previously appropriated.
Second.
Have a motion and second. Go to the board and vote, please. Motion passes.
Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Good report.
Okay. We've already did purchasing committee. Next is Resolution 18-03. That's 681, supporting legislation establishing Medicaid TennCare rates as the maximum chargeable amount for medical services provided to inmates in county jails and state prisons. Second. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Commissioner Val?
I just would like to know who got the ball rolling on this and who got it to us here tonight. Because whoever it is, I want to thank them for it. I'm sure Chief Johnson, the sheriff, would thank them for it, and I'm sure our taxpayers would thank them for it. So whoever it is, thank y'all.
Mr. Meade.
This is strongly supported by the Tennessee County Commission Association, and Charlie Curtis will be at their door daily.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Let's see. New business has already been taken care of. Old business has been taken off. Commissioner Scott.
Thank you very much. Avery,
Yeah, we did that already.
just real quick.
We did that when Catherine came forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank Avery for sending some of the trustees out to clean up Key Springs Road. I had received a call and followed it up by checking it out for myself to see that there was a lot of debris where people, I guess, are just losing items as they go down the mountain. But thank you very much for acting on it very quickly.
That's no problem. I know that I get calls from a lot of commissioners, and I know that the zoning office gets a lot of calls from citizens wanting roads cleaned up, and we try to have inmates available every day, except on Saturday and Sunday to do that. There is a Saturday program that's done through the courts for the DUI people that have to pick up trash. But I did get a report today from Jeff Trabaka, just to give you some idea of how much garbage we pick up. Just since July, we've picked up 5,000 to 6,000 pounds a month. A month.
A month?
Yes. Yes. And that's, like I said, that's, they pick up trash every day but Wednesdays and Sundays. Wednesdays they work down at the Tire Recycling Center. When I spoke with our officer that takes the inmates out about Key Springs Road, he said that is about a every 3-week program that they take care of that road. It's that bad.
Commissioner Val?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd also like to thank the chief for arranging the sidewalks outside of the courthouse to be pressure washed and cleaned. You all have noticed that. That was also on a Saturday with our inmates. We don't want to interrupt business hour courthouse traffic. The sidewalk looks very good.
We've still got a little work. I think the bank building is needing done, the walls on the outside and the steps and places like that. We'll get that this spring. I wanted to get the courthouse done. It was in pretty bad shape. But anything we can do to help the sheriff's office, even with making Commissioner Val work over in the training sergeant under him. If y'all need any sexual harassment training, if that's would be appropriate for us to do, we'd be glad to do it. And I'm sure Mark Lucas on the operations side would also volunteer his training officer on that side of the department to do it as well. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Before we leave, I want to say thank you for the new clickers that work.
These are great.
And I understand that these are half price from what the other ones were.
There is, but the newer units were 80 if we replaced what we currently had or what we had. With these, they were $42. So it was a savings of about 50%.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Well, the tabulation of them is very quick.
Very quick.
As well.
Yeah. Almost instant.
Yeah.
Running through the Wi-Fi system that we put in a
Pardon?
few months back.
The tabulation.
Any other business to come forward, the county commissioner statements? Motion to adjourn? Thank you.